It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Lawrence all by himself. Takes a shotgun snap to pass. Plants. Shuffling right. Still looking, scanning. Turns. Now he rolls to the left side. Looking for the end zone. Fires off platform. And that's a catch for a touchdown. And it's Calvin Ridley. Richardson's going to take it off and run. He's at the 50. He's at the 45. He's at the 40. Left side. Takes tacklers down to the 35-yard line. Richardson going to take off and run. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Shotgun snap for Lawrence. Hangs in the pocket. He's going to fly it towards the end zone to the right side. And making a diving attempt on the football is Zay Jones. But they're going to say he does catch the ball. Richardson, RPO, fakes it. Now he's going to screen it left side to Pittman. He's got it creases at the 20, 15, 10, 5 races for the pylon. He's in. Touchdown. Touchdown, Michael Pittman Jr. Lawrence plants in the pocket. He's hit as he throws. The ball is out. There's a fight for it around the 35-yard line.
Get the ball.
The play's still going. Pick it up. The Colts pick it up. It's DeForest Buckner. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. Stretching for the pylon. Touchdown. Here they're going to run it with ETN. Starts right, cuts off left. He's at the 20. He's at the 10. 5 touchdown. Game was on the line in crunch time. The Jaguars flex their muscle.
It always starts with myself with anything. You know, we got to run the ball better, and it starts with me. You know, we didn't run it as good as we should have.
Throughout the game, you know, emotions were everywhere. I was happy. I was a little bit more chilled. Then after the game, I was a little hurt because I feel like we had it. You know, we just got to clean some things up as an offense.
All right, it's a Reaction Monday with you on the Wake Up Call, hanging out, 7 o'clock hour in the DriveHubler.com studios. KB, Andy, Mark, hanging out with you for the next 3 hours, and today's all about you. Colts losers on Sunday, 31-21. Were you at the game? What did you do a keg stand? That's where we start today. I have had a long weekend. Cannot wait to react with you guys. NFL Week 1 nearly in the books. The game tonight, but it's all about you. 317-239-1070. Hanging out with you on the Wake Up Call. KB, a very good morning. Lots to talk about. Obviously, the loss, the Jonathan Taylor situation, injuries, Anthony Richardson, and everything in between. Fellas, a very happy morning. You got the Notre Dame on. You're looking good today.
Well,
Look
thank you. Yeah, this
you feeling
throwback.
good today?
I am feeling
it's
good.
It's almost a medium too, by the way.
Yeah,
it's on the edge.
Some pictures of Ryan Bowen, my older brother, rocking this about the age of 12. So it's a miracle that this still fits
Looks
me.
Good.
Yeah, entertaining, Andy. Certainly traded blows with, I think, one of the better teams in the AFC, and, you know, had a lead midway through the fourth quarter. I'm not sure realistically what more you could ask for. Again, certainly there are things to get to, and the support or lack thereof for Anthony Richardson will be a storyline that we saw yesterday, and I think we'll continue to see. And frankly, I thought we saw one of, not Richardson, and we'll get into this, but I thought we saw one of the worst games in Colts history from one of their players yesterday. But the Richardson experience, think back to 365 days ago. Think back to where you were as a Colts fan following the final game of last year, and tell me how you feel this morning than what you felt after the season finale or after Week 1's tie in Houston. You feel better. You have to have watched him and think to yourself, okay, there is some stuff to work with here. There is a lot of stuff to work with here. By no means was it perfect. I thought, honestly, Richardson looked like a much different quarterback once the Colts got a lead than when they were playing from behind kind of early. I thought they responded really well early on, and then once they got the lead, it was one of those bleep moments like, wait, we're not supposed to be doing this.
Right. And Richardson talked about that post-game.
Yeah, and Richardson and the offense just kind of melted once you got into those moments. Certainly the defense, I thought, when you look at a 31-point total, it's totally unfair to the defense. We're going to get to the end of the season, and the Colts are going to have like a high, point total allowed, and you're going to go back to Week 1 and be like, wait, that's not an accurate assessment of how that unit played. I thought the usually very reliable punt team was pretty darn bad, and that was the play of the game, if you want to boil it down, I think, to one play, when Jamal Agnew scooped up that punt and took it about 45 yards to set up what eventually was the game-winning touchdown. But nonetheless, Andy, I thought it was a terrific atmosphere inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, and I thought if you are realistic about the Colts and your expectations for this season, I thought Week 1 went pretty good.
Yeah, my initial reaction was watching that game. It's a number of things. And listen, we'll take your calls. We're wide open today. No guest today, so we're going to be reacting to this. Obviously, a big weekend in the NFL, college football, and everything else. To me, KB, it's pretty simple. Didn't we talk about this kind of game? This is the exact kind of game that we were talking about, right? Before the season, leading into the season, was
entertaining
it not?
losses.
Well, yes, an entertaining loss. I mean, to me, that's exactly what you saw. A team that was in it in the third quarter, in it in the fourth quarter, could have made it. Now, we have to talk about the end of the game. We have not had a internal discussion on kicking the field goal at the end of the game with 40-some-odd seconds and giving yourself at least an onside kick. If Matt Gay can come in and knock in that field goal, we do need to talk about Anthony Richardson. I mean, listen, first quarter, second quarter, fourth quarter, the guy was hobbling. Now, I mean, needs to be talking about giving that he's going to be your leading rusher. And then the other thing, the running game, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's a rough day from Deon Jackson, whether it's just...
That's a compliment, by the way, to Deon Jackson.
It is. I'm being nice to him. He was terrible yesterday, and the running backs aren't good enough. We knew they were not good enough. Zach Moss comes back. How much can he change with all of that? We shall see. But they just can't run the football, and I know Joel A. Erickson, I cannot say that man's name. It's the A in the middle. That's what it is. That's what it is, KB. I mean, he wrote exactly what I was thinking right at the very beginning of the game. I mean, you have a third down, and Jonathan Taylor, you feel like, would get that third down. And we can get into the decisions by Steichen not taking a field goal early. What do you think about that? Obviously, the end of the game, but this is the kind of game that we thought we might see a lot of. The Colts battled. The Colts were there. The Colts had a chance. They probably feel like they let one go. And then when the game gets down into it, and all the emotion of the first half, and it's the first game and everything settles down, coaches are making, adjustments on the fly. Usually the better team comes out and finishes the game. And that's exactly what Jacksonville did. It was a little more high scoring than I thought. 23, what did I have? 23-16, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, the over easily hit.
But there were bright moments on the defense. You mentioned that 31 is not indicative of how they played. Overall, it's one of those things. If you're a Colts fan, and this is what I'm interested in today, you got to be. I don't know if you're mad. I don't know if you're frustrated. I don't know if you look at AR and say there's something absolutely there. Pittman had a nice game. It's a mixed emotion bag, and I feel like we're going to sit here on Mondays and probably have a lot of these. Don't you feel that way?
And I think especially early on, I feel like if you're a Colts fan exiting that stadium, yes, you can have this great perspective on what the 2023 season is all about, but we're all wired with a competitive, ounce or two in our body, if not more. You got to be bummed. I mean, you've lost 10 straight season openers. I mean, that was a game that, again, you had a lead over the best team in your division midway through the fourth quarter, and you walk out of that stadium
with the ball.
Yeah, with the ball several times.
With the ball a couple times.
Several drives where you could have potentially padded that lead into two scores. And I think where you're bummed, Andy, is, yes, Richardson threw the game-clinching interception. That is a moment that, again, that's why you play him. I tweeted it out before the series starts. This is why you play him. You can't script this. Down 3, 5 minutes to go, TV timeout. That place is on, the edge of their seat. How do you deliver? And obviously, it didn't go well. But again, he's got to feel and be in those moments. I think where you leave a little bummed is you didn't do enough around him to kind of lift you to victory.
But that's the story.
This
that's
is the age-old question.
Yeah.
I thought we saw some first game mistakes by the head coach as well. Now, league-wide, I find it very fitting, Andy, that I believe all 5 new coaches lost their first games yesterday. All 3 rookie quarterbacks lost their first games. I know a couple of those obviously overlap with new coaches and rookie quarterbacks there. But I thought there were some issues in short yardage, especially when you think back to the situational stuff. I think eventually Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson will be a pretty good duo in the short yardage, but 2 of 12 on third down, 1 of 5 on fourth down. You can't have that. And again, I felt like this team, when after the Pittman touchdown, great running catch on the bubble screen. Those are some play. You want to see Pittman in space more. I think that's where he's kind of best utilized. But after that, Andy, you went 5 straight drives with 0 first downs.
Right.
5 straight drives with 0 first downs.
The defense
and again,
can't be on the field the entire second
defense
half.
just finally breaks because, again, they're out there way too long.
I don't blame the
They were
defense.
defending short fields way too often. Again, you bring up the big punt return that I thought was, probably the play that just gave Jacksonville that jolt that they needed to finally get over the hump. And then you had the sequence. After the punt return, Jacksonville cashes it in. You throw the pick. Travis Etienne. How about the Etienne touchdown, Andy? 26 yards, and that was the cherry on top to finally seal it. 26 yards on the touchdown run. Let me look this up here. Colts running backs yesterday combined.
Don't look at it.
Combined for 25 yards. Do we have a Malky Kawa tweet yesterday at all? I mean, how did he not fire one off in response to?
Well, and then the leak, the leak at 6-7 a.m. in the morning that Jonathan Taylor's ready to go, and that the Colts wanted Christian Watson in return, who everyone automatically I can't believe that Irsay would want Watson. It's like, okay, the guy he's a good receiver, I think. He also had 41 catches.
Did Fox ever show Taylor?
I don't remember. Do you? No, because the internet would have. No, Twitter would have.
I'm in the press box, so I was just kind of looking up and you know. Trying to look up at highlights, things like that.
What was
I
the
don't recall seeing
it at all. What was the spread in the press box? Little chicken, little grilled chicken, cheeseburger. What'd they have you?
The spread was about as good as Zaire Franklin.
Yesterday. Was it really? 18 tackles.
So that means bacon was there.
It was darn impressive, man. They were.
Kevin loves bacon.
I didn't know where to turn. I was like, wait, there's a new station over there. So yes, spread outstanding. The opposite of Deon Jackson.
We also may need to do something today. So where we are in the DriveHubler.com studios, I'm staring at the beautiful Kevin Bowen on this Monday morning, reacting with you.
I don't know if I deserve that.
Well, in giving that, I think we have Spectrum here, so we don't have ESPN up. So we have the NFL Network, which is fine, but they keep showing Micah bleeping Parsons, and it would be nice if I could not see him. So you might just turn the TVs off.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe that effort from your Giants?
Oh, we'll talk about it later. I moved all day yesterday. My body felt like I had been playing an NFL game. My body, it was as tired as it could possibly be. All right, KB? And then I'm thinking, we'll get a little, I thought, might win the game tonight, and then that happened. How do you think my body feels today?
Boy, I've been here before, mainly with Notre Dame Saturday night games of you wait all day to watch your team in prime time. Yeah. I know I sound like Carrie Underwood here, but seriously, and then that's the effort. By the way, that's my Super Bowl pick, the Dallas Cowboys, 40-0.
Yeah, Dak Prescott is 108 yards or whatever. Can I give you one stat? Yesterday, 2.5 yards per carry, and that's including Anthony Richardson averaging 4 yards per carry. Last year, one game, the Tennessee Titans game, was 2.1 from Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, again,
2.1 from Jonathan Taylor is his lowest output last year, which of course was a bad year considering the record and his injuries and everything else.
I would like to think our listeners realize I don't speak in hyperbole, or at least try not to. If I'm going to say something that I consider whatever bold or hot takey, there's some reason for me to say that. I mean this in all seriousness. Yesterday was one of the worst games I've ever seen a Colts player play, and that Colt player being Deon Jackson. I mean, just absolutely awful. We can get more into that, obviously, as the show moves along. Certainly dissect the debut of Anthony Richardson. As Andy mentioned, the defense, I thought, largely did its job. Kind of one of the wilder plays you'll see in NFL history. The DeForest Buckner strip Zaire Franklin. Was he being smart, or was he just being a
in
bleeper? And his thoughts on that are pretty funny. We will read your fan tweet reactions from the game. Take your calls, 317-239-1070, and get into our Monday conversation. GOAT of the week. That can be in all caps. That can be in lowercase, no matter how you want to do it. And touch a little bit on NFL Week 1 in general. I am Kevin Bowen. He is Andy Sweeney. Mark Dykton is with us as always. Certainly on this day, that is September 11th, we will remember everybody that lost their lives, whether it was in New York, D.C., or Pennsylvania, or really anybody that was affected by that. Is certainly a day that will live in infamy. I know we saw a lot of tributes around the NFL, and actually driving downtown this morning, you saw the monument lit up in red, white, and blue. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy here on a Monday.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, morning check down. Again, coming up in about 10 minutes. We'll take your calls. What about Jonathan Taylor? Do the Colts win if Jonathan Taylor is in the game? What about the end of the game? Call to not kick the field goal from Shane Steichen. We'll dive in to all of that. Let me ask you guys, you're veterans in this, KB. What do we do morning check down on a Monday? Do I give you that the Reds lost 3 of 4?
I think we go
or
rapid fire.
We
We
got
got to go pretty quickly here to get back in the Colts combo.
Reds winners 7-1 yesterday. They did lose 2 of 3 at home to St. Louis. The Cubbies won, but bad weekend for them with Arizona. Where does it stand right now? Still Philly, the Cubs in that third spot. Now Arizona, Miami a half game back, then the Giants, then the Reds. So the Reds lost a full game this weekend, KB, and now they're sitting with 3 teams in front of them.
College football from this weekend. Delays for the Boilermakers and the Irish, but they both prevail. Purdue gets the first win of the Ryan Walters era. Boy, talk about a totally defensive effort, especially in the second half from week 1. Purdue wins at Virginia Tech.
That was a good win, by the way.
They've got now Syracuse at home coming up on Saturday night. Notre Dame pulls away from NC State in the fourth quarter. Pretty dominant in that final period. So Notre Dame remains undefeated. And Indiana takes care of business at home with Indiana State. Deon Jackson got the start. Looked pretty solid, I would assume.
He's the starter, right?
It's Deon Jackson this Saturday at Lucas Oil when Louisville comes to town. But official word from Tom Allen, of course, not going to come anytime soon.
Mel Tucker suspended without pay at Michigan State. Go read about that creep. Go ahead and go to the website. Go to the internet and read about that. So I think that's just he's going to get fired. It's a matter of when they can dot the I's and cross the T's. But Mel Tucker had a $90 million contract at Michigan State. 90.
Week 1 NFL takeaways. I thought some very, very surprising results. In particular, what Cleveland did to Cincinnati, what Tampa Bay did on the road to Minnesota. How about the Rams over the Seahawks without Cooper Kupp? San Francisco looked outstanding. The Bears looked like the Bears. And Andy,
the hell does that mean?
Come on, rub it in my face. Come on, we talking about the Rams. Come on.
And Andy, I don't know what the hell that was last night.
No, you want to move on from that now? That's funny.
You know what? The one thing I don't want to talk about,
40-0 is really hard to do in the NFL.
Team USA basketball. That's
on both sides of it. Team USA, no medal.
I know you would care about. I knew you would care about that.
No medal for the United States.
Gutless New York, 40-0. What a bunch of gutless pukes. Come on.
I love that. I love that fire there. Indiana Fever season comes to a close. They do win yesterday to cap their season. They were much better late in the year. Certainly some signs that you want to see. And Scott Dixon, tremendous end of the year for him as well. He wins at Laguna Seca as IndyCar wraps up their season. All right, on the other side, let's get back into the Colts conversation. What did you think of the debut of Anthony Richardson? How should Jonathan Taylor and or the Colts view yesterday's performance from the running backs? Give us a call, 317-239-1070. We'll get into some of your thoughts and give ours as well as we recap the season opener for the Colts next. It's a wake-up call with KB and Andy right here on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, going to take some calls here. 317-239-1070. Reacting with you on the Wake Up Call. KB and Andy, Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney, Mark Dykton producing today's effort. We're wide open today. Guys, just quickly, we can go around the room here. Two things that we got to talk about before we head to the phones, and obviously we have 2.5 hours left today. We'll continue. I think number one is the leaking of the Jonathan Taylor news at 7 a.m. on Sunday. The Jonathan Taylor news that he is ready to go. The hold in that we've been talking about for the last several weeks upon weeks. Is he ready to go? Well, he is ready to go, and we know the agent leaking that to Rappaport and Schefter and everybody else. And then the reality is, if Jonathan Taylor plays yesterday, I mean, this is, Colts fans where I would be angriest, and you can be angriest at the agent, you can be angriest at Jonathan Taylor, Jim Irsay, Chris Ballard, the Colts organization. If you have a lot more at running back, yesterday can be a lot different, including, a win. And so the Jonathan Taylor stuff is definitely out there. And then, KB, I want your thoughts as well. End of the game. Down 10, it's 31-21, 40-some-odd seconds. You don't right now. You're not running the ball. You've had to burn 2 timeouts with the Deon Jackson run and then the injury to Anthony Richardson. So you're down to 1 timeout. You don't kick the field goal again. There'd be 40 seconds to go. Maybe you still have to get the onside. You still have to go down. You still got to score. You still got to get the extra point or go for 2 there. There's still so many things that have to happen. But I know my feed was, take the points there. Am I being hypocritical? Because I did not mind going for it earlier in the game where you could have got 3 points there as well and taken a 10-7 lead. So for me, end of game was a conversation I saw a lot of on Twitter. And then obviously just if it's anger, if it's frustration, whatever it may be, but you can't run the damn football outside of Anthony Richardson. And he's hobbled because he's taking hits. He's taking big boy hits in the NFL. And so the Jonathan Taylor stuff, it reared its ugly head and did so in the very first drive of the game.
Yeah, I think on the Richardson front, I thought Trevor Lawrence had some really interesting comments to him at the end of the game that Lawrence shared afterwards. We'll play that audio here in a little bit. I had no issue with the Colts going for the touchdown there late. I think there's a thought process there of you or getting so close to the end zone, just go ahead and try. You have to score a touchdown at some point if you're going to come back from 10 points down, and then you get an onside kick, you have 1 completion, and you try Matt Gay from 58 yards.
Are you in the minority? I feel like you might be.
Yeah, I guess that is the minority, but again, hindsight's 20/20 once Richardson gets hurt, so I'm sure a lot of people are reacting off of it to that. And then on the running back front, again, I thought yesterday was one of the worst games you'll ever see from a running back. Deon Jackson, even if you just look at his run game, okay, Andy, 13 carries for 14 yards. No math major. I believe that's 1.1 yards per carry.
What was your major?
Sport communication print with a marketing minor.
Okay. You got the marketing minor.
Whenever this flames out here, we'll see if we can rely on my Kelly School business minor
Well,
here.
if it flames out, I'm living in Indianapolis for a while. But I'm not moving again after yesterday, okay?
You and I both are at the bottom of the White River sinking there. Obviously, that is horrid. 1.1 yards per carry. It's the second worst mark in the 40-year history of the Indianapolis Colts. But then look at the 2 fumbles. Look at the critical third quarter drop that Deon Jackson had. I mean,
he had a terrible game.
You throw that on top of, again, just the extremely poor run effort. And I know the offensive line certainly plays into that, but still, as we saw in the preseason, this is a running back group that gets what's blocked. And if I am the Colts right now, maybe it's just Zach Moss all of a sudden appearing in week 2. But I'm very curious, Andy, to see if we see a veteran running back signed in the next 24 to 48 hours. We know Evan Hall got banged up in the game. He left with a knee injury, so, of course, his availability is something to watch.
He couldn't make it off the field. He had to lay down, yeah.
I didn't really understand why Hall wasn't a little bit more rotating in early in the first half. They were riding Deon Jackson like he was Jonathan Taylor, and I'm like, boy, I thought it'd be more by-committee approach there. I think going back to Richardson for a second, I think you have to be encouraged early on. He misses Ogletree on that second play of the game, Andy, and then he hits 6 in a row. And in a way, I kind of looked at Richardson's game, and for stretches there, it was a little bit more of a methodical Richardson. What was he had to be north of 60% after the game, 60, 65%. Again, that's not really what I'm expecting from him. Where I was a little disappointed in Shane Steichen, and he said that there were some plays dialed up for it. I want to see like 2 or 3 very concentrated, heavily protected, deep shots a game.
Totally
because
agree.
That is
totally
Richardson's strength as a thrower. I can't recall one attempt that was more than about 20 yards down the field. I mean, hell, your biggest play was obviously the little screen to Pittman, and then he does the rest. I know you had Ogletree down the seam where he got concussed and left the game. I thought Richardson's best throw of the game was when he took a hit and fired one in stride to Josh Downs. Downs had a nice run after catch. But even if you don't necessarily complete those balls down the field, Andy, what you're doing is saying, safeties, think twice about coming up to the line of scrimmage, because at some point you want those plays to be there. And Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, they've got flaws. Pierce again yesterday, just another disappearing act. But where Pierce is at his best, a 50-50 ball outside the numbers. Where Pittman is at his best, in space. You saw it on the touchdown that he had. I didn't think you dialed up enough of that. So I feel like with Richardson, they didn't play to his throwing strengths enough, and that is attempting some stuff down the field. I know Jacksonville probably had some safeties back a little bit, but again, make sure that now they know that. Make sure Houston sees that on film, getting ready for Sunday, and says, guys, he can uncork one, and they will uncork ones. If not, you're going to be playing against these 8-man boxes all afternoon.
Like, if you go to the Buffalo and Philly preseason games, to me, I can remember a couple different times in the Pierce drop, which is, kind of a deep ball, are the ones, and we thought, well, they're going to hold those for week 1. And while they did show, obviously, new stuff, different stuff on offense with Anthony Richardson and company, you still haven't seen him just uncork one, as you would say, down the field.
And again, that is his strength, Andy. Like, that's where he is at. Anybody that went out to Grand Park, like you brought up, the Alec Pierce ball in week 1 of the preseason, that is where he is at his best as a thrower. It's some of the intermediate stuff that you have some questions on. I thought Richardson's comment post-game was really interesting, though, in his biggest takeaway from his first NFL experience. It was something to the effect, and it sounds very elementary, his answer, but it's so true. He said, every play matters. Every drive matters. You can't take plays off. You can't take drives off. And again, I know that sounds a bit elementary, and like I'm sure there's some people out there that are like, duh. But just look at the NFL. Look at week 1. I mean, so many close games, and the Colts had multiple drives. I would say probably 3 drives, Andy, where they were up 21-17, and the offense had an ability to either flip field position or certainly try to pad that lead. Because if you get that lead to 2 scores, and now a Jacksonville banged-up offensive line, and I said it all week long, your defensive line should have an advantage, and they did. I thought the defensive line won that battle pretty substantially. If you all of a sudden grow that lead a little bit, now Jacksonville's in obvious passing situations.
Everything's different, yeah.
And now you can really pin your ears back and get after Lawrence. And I thought, again, the D-line did a pretty nice job there, and it goes back to after the Pittman touchdown, 5 straight offensive drives, 0 first downs. I thought Richardson looked like a different quarterback after that. And again, these are things he's got to grow with of, okay, now the bullseye's kind of on your back with you having your first NFL lead, and how do you not just feel some of that pressure? So I thought Richardson looked like a different quarterback there after they scored that touchdown to, I guess, tie the game at the point there early in the third quarter.
That's exactly what Greg Doyle wrote about. I mean, at one point you had a situation where you're up 21-17, and then the last quarter and a half before the final drive, he was 1 of 7, 8 yards in a pick, right? In the pick that kind of ended the game. All right, quickly before we go to the phone lines, Jonathan Taylor, the leaking of the news, and then, I mean, do you want to even have the conversation if Jonathan Taylor, it's a very sports radio conversation, if Jonathan Taylor plays yesterday, the Colts win the game?
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted out probably, I don't know, maybe it was midway through the third quarter. Can only imagine Jonathan Taylor's agent watching this and what he's thinking and what would his response be to the Colts. Not to get too technical, Andy, but in terms of the agent leaking that stuff to Schefter and Rappaport, I didn't really think that was very newsy. I think Stephen Holder has even said with us he would pass a physical if he got traded tomorrow. And I look at that, and again, I'm getting a little deep into like the NFL news world here. But Andy, you know full well what happens on Sunday mornings. pregame shows out the wazoo. So Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter have to act like they have some great news to share to their viewers. I think to the NFL world, that might have been big news. To myself, or I think to people in this market.
We're following it so close.
I didn't think it was that newsy of an item there. And that's stuff that, again, I think Steven has had, and Rappaport and Schefter, they could have that on Thursday and just say, let's sit and act like it's a big deal on Sunday morning. You see stories like this a lot on Sunday mornings. Now, big picture, yes, I mean, like, of course you need Jonathan Taylor. Like, I've been saying it for weeks, months now, and I have skepticism, Andy, because we haven't really got into numbers, but I have got some skepticism. I've said 3 years, $39 million throughout this process. I have skepticism if the Colts would do that. And
you should have skepticism. Yeah.
That's where because I think there's some debate. How much money does Taylor want? Does he want 15? Does he want 16? That's where Alvin Kamara, that's where Christian McCaffrey are. 3 for 39 falls a little bit more to the Nick Chubb category, or even the Derrick Henry category. And that's where I think we just get into this, and it's like, does 1 or 2 million, does that really matter? I mean, you're paying Matt Gay how much money? You're paying Luke Rhodes how much money now? Like, I mean, seriously, if it really is coming down to this huge debate over 1 or 2 million,
it can't be
is one of the worst games in NFL history, Colts history, from a running back with fumbles and a drop on top of it. Is it worth watching that?
Listen. You can leave yesterday's game as a Colts fan, and we're going to go to the phone lines. You can leave yesterday's game as a Colts fan, taking some good out of it, not feeling totally like crap. Okay, like some NFL fans feel, like Mark feels today, like I feel today. But the Jonathan Taylor situation is so freaking frustrating because it reared its ugly head throughout the game,
and it's obvious
where they're having to do a pitch play on 4th down because they don't think they can run the ball up the middle, and now Anthony Richardson, if he's hobbled, well, he's the only one that can run. He's 4 yards to carry. He's the one.
And Andy, I think it goes back to this. Did Trevor Lawrence have some big-time throws yesterday?
Yes, he did.
Without question. But did you see some of the catches that Evan Ingram had?
Well, Zay Jones, fantastic
that
catch.
Calvin Ridley had.
Yeah.
Zay Jones, I think most people would label as their number 3 wideout. You see that grab he had?
Yeah.
For the touchdown, when you talk about supporting your quarterback, other guys stepping up, making plays, helping out. I mean, there were several balls Lawrence threw, and I thought the Colts secondary actually did a decent job in contesting some of those plays, and you just got out-athleted, out-talented. And yet, I can't recall many, if any, plays the Colts skill guys, running backs, wideouts, or tight ends did their part in helping Richardson, and I think that's going to be such a storyline all season long.
I know it's been a joke, but it's why the rumors came out that they asked for Jalen Waddle in the Miami talks a couple weeks ago. And then, I mean, to me, I don't know. I feel like this was at least a little bit news that they had interest and they wanted from the Packers Christian Watson,
right?
Who, again, is a young player. He didn't play yesterday against the Bears. They didn't need him. Sorry, Mark. Jordan Love looked pretty good, but he had 41 catches last year. He's supposed to take the next step this year. It's why they've looked, and that ain't good for Pierce. I can tell you who that ain't good for.
No.
That is not good that they're looking to do that.
Was Christian Watson drafted before Pierce?
Oh, man. You look that up while we go to the phone lines. I do not know. 317-239-1070. Sam leads us off here, hanging out with you on the Fan on this Reaction Monday. Sam, fire away, buddy.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. First of all, shout out to Matt Gay for making $23 million to kick extra points. shout out to DeBoris, the defense, Buckner, and Richardson. Now, for the coach, when you're in a divisional game and it's a dogfight, you don't hurt your team by going 0 for 4 with unbelievably bad play calling on 4th down in close games. Like, these are dogfights. We're fighting to 27, 31 points, and this guy's given up on 4th down. Remember, 4th down, they've stopped you 3 times. They got your number. AR played his heart out. Ballard rolled a practice squad around AR, and we got embarrassed. We got embarrassed.
Sam, there's a lot of validity to what he just said. Yes, Christian Watson was taken about 20 spots ahead of Alec Pierce. The first 4th down, I had no issue with it whatsoever. 4th and inches, you knew the Philly special, however you want to call it, the Philly
this
QB
is what
sneak
Steichen
play.
has been doing.
Yeah. I mean, and what was their success rate in Philly? Like 90-something%.
They got it every time. Every time they got it.
And isn't there an element of like, you're paying all these dudes up front that much money for a reason? You should get that. Like, I know that we just immediately go to absolutely roasting the head coach, the play caller, right after the game for the inability to get a 4th and inches there early on. And it's like, some point, can we blame the personnel? Can we blame your unbelievable offensive line from a money and draft pick standpoint there? You know, the 4th and 4 at midfield, yeah, I mean, that one.
You could punt him back.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously pitching to Deon Jackson gets blown up and then he fumbles. It looks horrific in that moment there. I think there was an element that Shane Steichen walked into that game and thought, if we're going to win this game, we're going to have to get 230. And I think that was some of his thought process there. Where I have more of the Steichen issues from yesterday, I thought, and I'm curious if the injury played into this, because Richardson said after the game, and I tweeted out, he was limping there late in the first quarter. His first run, that was when they did that true triple option. I think he faked it to maybe it was Jackson up the middle. Josh Downs was the guy in motion. Richardson ran it for like 11 yards. He gets hurt on that play. It was a knee, I think it was a knee bruise on that play. He was limping a little bit afterwards. I felt like they didn't do a whole lot of designed runs for Richardson after that. And so I'm curious if the injury played into any of that. So getting away from a little bit more of running Richardson, because obviously your running backs weren't doing anything. And then twofold, as I said earlier, I would have liked to have seen a few more dialed up deep shots.
Here's what Richardson said post-game about his knee.
First quarter, can't remember exactly what play it was, but I had a zone read pull to hit my knee on the turf. You know, just a little bruise on it. That's it. Just ice it. I'll be all right.
A little booze on it.
And then
I like that.
I'm curious, and I guess I'll ask Shane Steichen this a little bit later today, Andy, but what did he then hurt at the end of the game? I thought the hit was like to his left shoulder area. He didn't reference, him or Steichen did not reference anything shoulder, even head. I think you could make the argument there. Maybe it was a hit kind of towards that area. But obviously Gardner Minshew came in with 3 plays to go. And Richardson was down for what seemed like close to a minute. I mean, he received some medical attention on the field.
It was scary, man.
So that is, and Trevor Lawrence said that to him afterwards. We can play this audio here in a little bit of just protect yourself is what he said to Richardson in that moment. I think something that I will have this internal debate with all year, Andy, with Richardson is I know this is a part of his game, so it's impossible to tell him not to do this, but I don't need to see him as a runner. Anthony Richardson can, and I would argue will be, an elite running quarterback in this league. That is of little debate to me. What we need to see is him as a thrower and him in moments like he was in yesterday. You're down 3 points, 5 minutes to go in the game. Here's the ball. What are you going to do with it? And obviously yesterday it did not go well in that situation. But that's why you're playing him. That's why he needs to stay on the field. I don't need to see him scrambling. I don't need to see him running the ball 15 times a game. Again, I know part of that is just inevitably going to be in the game plan and Richardson's instincts. So I get that you're going to have some of that. But why it's so critical that he plays 16 more games this year is for him to get the 68, 69, however many offensive snaps he played yesterday, to go head-to-head with one of the better teams in the AFC, to be in a one-possession game, to get that moment with 5 minutes to go in the game, to try and prove yourself as a passer. That's why he needs to play.
239-1070. Let's go to Mark up next on The Fan on this Reaction Monday. Mark, fire away, buddy.
I just kind of want to piggyback on the previous caller. You know, there was a couple moments where, okay, we're in field goal range. We just gave the biggest free agent contract to a kicker ever. And, no, let's keep going for it with a running back who probably shouldn't even be on the team. So those kind of just go together. I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room, with John Taylor, they win the game. The defense played great. The offense didn't do them any favors. They wore out. You know, because they couldn't run the ball. So that's all I got. I love your show, guys.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you, Mark. Yeah, Andy, I mean, again, they got stuffed on the Philly sneak, and then you had like a 58-59 yarder that you didn't attempt on another fourth down.
That's a difficult one.
I know,
Yeah,
and I know Matt Gay has that leg. Like in years past, you'd be running the punt unit out there every single time. I guess I don't have as much. I don't know if there was like 4 or 5 times where the Colts didn't go for a field goal. I know late, we've already talked about it. You got to get a touchdown at some point late. I was fine with getting the touchdown as you're moving the ball. Jacksonville showed no resistance on that drive there at the end when it was 31-21 until it got to like a goal to go. So I had no issue there with trying to score. You have to get a touchdown at some point. I thought, it's something I know it's not maybe the sexy headline to get to, but Andy, in this market, we are used to the Colts having a really good punt team. And I know that's kind of like a weird thing to even say, but whether it's Pat McAfee, whether it's Hunter Smith, Rigoberto Sanchez, the Colts have had a really good punting team. And yesterday, Sanchez, in his first game back from the torn Achilles, had some punts that just didn't. I mean, it looked a little Friday night-ish from some of the punts. And then the play of the game was Jamal Agnew picking up that bouncing punt there late. He fielded that ball at their own 6-yard line. So if you let up a 5-yard return there, you tackle them at the 11, you then are saying, hey, Trevor Lawrence, your offense has not been able to drive the ball the length of the field many times against our defense. Try and do that. Instead, Agnew scoops up that ball. He goes 48 yards into your territory, and that was when the Colts were leading. They were up 21-17 at that point. Jacksonville then
it's a game changer.
Punches
there's no doubt about it.
That one in. Richardson throws the pick 2 plays later. Travis Etienne puts the cherry on top. So when you have the issues you do offensively and you're playing quality opponents, you can't do that on special teams. And I thought the Colts, just in general, were really poor with their punt unit on Sunday.
You know what's funny? Shane Steichen said, especially on those fourth downs, and again, coaching, I'm sure that's what he wants to do, but also if you've watched the Eagles over the last couple years, you know Sirianni is ready to go for it on fourth down just about anywhere on the field. Steichen did the opposite of Tom Allen. Tom Allen against Ohio State was like, we're going to play conservative and we're going to try to keep it close. Steichen said, to hell with it, we're going to go for it on fourth downs all over the field. Are you a
heavy go for it on fourth down guy? I know I would argue this debate happens more than any other post-game debate of play caller, fourth down decisions, whether to kick field goals or go for touchdowns.
I have been baptized into it. I have been the conservative go for the field goal. Like, I understand why fans...
Should the rookie QB, should that impact anything? Should you kick more field goals to, I don't know, stay in the game?
No,
and score
again,
more?
what they did in Philly, I am not surprised they lined up and they went for it. And I would even say if they would have kicked it at the end of the game and then got the onside kick, KB, and then scored a touchdown, I'm telling you Steichen goes for 2 there. That is what Sirianni has done. I would not be surprised. I'm fine.
Are the people that wanting the field goal did they have Indianapolis plus 7.5?
Here is where I believe, and we can talk about this in the 8 o'clock hour. I believe you will view I'm hypocritical here. I am good with going for it early in the game there. Okay, I understand you're probably taking 3 points off the board and you're in a dogfight. And in hindsight,
hello, offensive line, get 6 inches.
That's how I feel. Okay, let's test this offensive line. We've heard about the offensive line. Let's test it early on, first quarter. I'm fine with it there. I think that is the fiber of who Shane Steichen with Anthony Richardson is going to be. I'm more, though, at the end of the game, I get conservative, KB. I kick the field goal and go for the onside kick there. That's where I am probably, if not hypocritical, I'm probably inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some deep analytical thought that went into Steichen's decision making. I think coaches in that standpoint say, if we're this far down the field,
we're not going to get this far down.
Let's just get the touchdown, because then if you get the onside kick, now you're asking your offense to drive another 50 yards. Basically, they're thinking touchdown, 55-yard field goal versus 35-yard field goal, touchdown.
Long touchdown.
I think that's the thought process. And I get that it's a debate, and I'm fine with it. And again, I think the Richardson injury probably plays into a lot of
that's why I would have kicked it. Is just that's personally. I mean, they tried to go a couple quick outs to the left side with Minshew in that fourth quarter, and the Jags knew exactly what to do. And at that point, you're in a scramble drill, and you need AR in a scramble drill. You don't need Gardner Minshew.
Plenty of calls to get to. Your fan tweet reaction questions as well. Again, I thought the defense pretty darn good yesterday. I know the final score might not be the true indicator of that. What a wild play with DeForest Buckner and Zaire Franklin combining on something I've never seen. Buckner gets his second career touchdown. Zaire Franklin had a pretty funny comment after the game on what he was thinking. We will share that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Continue to have the conversation with you as well. It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy here on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Lawrence all by himself, takes a shotgun snap to pass, plants, shuffling right, still looking, scanning, turns. Now he rolls to the left side, looking for the end zone, fires off platform, and that's a catch for a touchdown, and it's Calvin Ridley. Richardson's going to take it off and run. He's at the 50, he's at the 45, he's at the 40, left side, takes tacklers down to the 35-yard line. Richardson going to take off and run. He's in there! Touchdown! I-N-D-Y! Shotgun snap for Lawrence, hangs in the pocket. He's going to fly it towards the end zone to the right side, and making a diving attempt on the football is Zay Jones, but they're going to say he does catch the ball. Richardson, RPO, fakes it. Now he's going to screen it left side to Pittman. He's got it creases to the 20, 15, 10, 5, racing for the pylon. He's in! Touchdown! Touchdown, Michael Pittman Jr. Lawrence plants in the pocket. He's hit as he throws. The ball is out. There's a fight for it around the 35-yard line.
Get the ball.
The play's still going. Pick it up. The Colts pick it up. It's DeForest Buckner. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. Stretching for the pylon. Touchdown! Here they're going to run it with ETN. Starts right, cuts off left. He's at the 20. He's at the 10. 5, touchdown. Game was on the line in crunch time. The Jaguars flex their muscle.
It always starts with myself with anything. We got to run the ball better, and it starts with me. We didn't run it as good as we should have.
Throughout the game, emotions were everywhere. I was happy. I was a little bit more chilled. Then after the game, I was a little hurt because I feel like we had it. We just got to clean some things up as an offense.
All right, those are the sounds of yesterday. Colts losers 31-21 to Jacksonville, as Bill Belichick would say.
Get the ball!
on to Houston, on to the Texans, who played with the Ravens for just a little bit. Oh yeah, I always love the coach yelling over top. That's what radio gives you, baby. I absolutely love it. 8 o'clock hour, hanging out with you. The Wake Up Call, KB and Andy, Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney, Mark Dykton producing today's effort. We're wide open today. 239-1070. You're going to get back to the phone lines here in just a second. I know, KB, you want to talk about defense. What is interesting, just quickly for me, two things. Number one, J.K. Dobbins goes down yesterday. And while he is a rotational back, and while, of course, much like with what we have here with Anthony Richardson, Lamar Jackson is going to be running the football, J.K. Dobbins, often injured, did go down and torn Achilles. I don't know if that's been completely confirmed this morning, but if they fear it, I'm sure it's not going to be good news, and it's a tough last couple years for him. Does that move any sort of trade needle at all? I'm just throwing it out there. With Jonathan Taylor, the Dolphins looked okay yesterday without Jonathan Taylor. And then, I followed in his career for years Lamar Jackson, and so I'm very well adversed, if you will, Kevin, on the entire conversation about when you're going to be a running quarterback and when you're not going to be a running quarterback, and if the quarterback's limping off the field and everything else. And I never really thought Lamar took a lot of flush hits, and I thought yesterday AR took some, and I thought he did. And it's funny, I always texting a couple buddies, and we always use poor Vanderbilt. But whenever there's an SEC, quarterback or player, it's like, this ain't Vanderbilt anymore. Andy Richardson's out there. This isn't Missouri, and he's like Drinkwitz, whatever the hell his name is.
Josh Allen ran Richardson down a couple times on those sideline no gain. I think he actually went down to sacks. Yeah. And I leaned over to Mike Chappell. I'm like, man, NFL speed's just a little. Yeah. It's just a little. NFL speed, NFL hits are a little different. And that, a little different. I think that's kind of what Trevor Lawrence said to him afterwards. Of there's an element of you've got to protect yourself. And Richardson got hurt on his first ever NFL run. I mean, that first run was an 11-yard gain. And this is where we're going to get into the debate with him throughout his career and why. Yep. Well, at some point, Andy, it's got to be, okay, can he be a thrower first? Yes, the run element, the ability to extend plays, create some of that stuff, that is a huge part of what he can be, but you've got to deliver from the pocket at some level. I do want to touch on the defense. We haven't really had the opportunity to do that just yet. I thought what stood out to me the most about your defense yesterday, Andy, because I think from a Trevor Lawrence skill position standpoint, outside of Cincinnati, and obviously that didn't go well yesterday, I don't think you're going to see a better group all year long. When you factor in Lawrence and then ETN, Evan Ingram, and those wideouts, I think it's the most potent group that you're going to see. And your defense,
and I can't recall a game last year where the Colts even sniffed this. You had a lot of playmaking, turnover-type moments. You created a couple of them. Obviously, you turned one into a touchdown. Those are the sorts of plays with Stephon Gilmore, who had an interception last night. Those are the sorts of plays.
Well, everybody had an interception last night, so congratulations to Gilmore.
Those are the sorts of plays you didn't dial up enough last season.
Right.
And you have to do it to help out an offense. It's just not going to be very explosive this year. I thought Zaire Franklin, 18 tackles, flying around, was outstanding. I actually thought Shaq Leonard looked a little better than I thought he would. He had 8 tackles.
I agree.
He was on a bit of a pitch count. I know he maybe wasn't around the ball as much in the turnover aspect. He had a huge tackle for loss that I think eventually knocked Jacksonville out of field goal range, made a couple plays in space. So I think it's a shame, Andy, that we're going to look at 31 points at the end of the year, and like that will be a sore eye on the schedule because I thought your defense did enough. By no means were they absolutely perfect. Your offense, your special teams put them in some awful field position situations. Your offense couldn't sustain drives, so your defense was out there seemingly for the entire second half there, and they eventually broke. But I thought the amount of playmaking you got. You had a Tony Brown interception, the Buckner play. Julian Blackmon had the near interception. EJ Speed punched a ball out. Again, those are 2 turnovers, 2 more very close to being turnovers. And I can't recall last year many games where the Colts, against a quality offense, had a handful of game-changing type plays.
We talked about, there's so many things that are new and that are young, and you look at the running backs and you look at AR, and we were like, okay, it's good. We're going to grade them, and maybe even Shane Steichen. We're going to grade them a little bit differently than other units on this team. And, defensively and defensive line, to me, I leave yesterday feeling a hell of a lot better than the offensive line. The offensive line needed a couple 4th and shorts, 3rd and shorts, and they could not get them. And to me, the defense absolutely did enough. And you mentioned the 2 turnovers. I just, if you're a Colts fan, you got to be frustrated at the option. You could have had a couple more, right? And Blackmon sold the pick. He ran down there and he did the preening for the camera.
I was going to say, as soon as I saw him
and everything else,
go for the picture, I'm like, man, did he have that?
That's what I said. I go, wait a minute. I thought it kind of hit the ground, but he's preening. I'm like, you can't really sell it because you can obviously, they're going to go to the cameras and they're going to look and they're going to know whether it hit the ground or not.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to act like the defense was perfect on the first touchdown.
It was acceptable.
I literally did the stopwatch. Trevor Lawrence had 7.19 seconds to throw on that first touchdown. Remember the 3rd and goal where he scrambled in and finally found, was it Ridley? I think he finally found.
It was Ridley, yeah.
In the back of the end zone. Again, it wasn't perfect, but I thought your defense gave your offense a chance. And you can't have the feast or famine nature to the offense. And that's exactly what it was. If you look at the 14 drives the Colts had yesterday, there were 2 or 3 where they really, really moved it. And then the other 10 or 11, oh man. I mean, it was 3 plays and a cloud of dust, really. I mean, it was absolutely nothing from your offense. Obviously, you had some 4th downs in there that you tried to get as well. So just you put too much on the defense's plate there. But I thought for week 1, I thought they did a nice job. I thought the young secondary contested a lot of balls as well. Again, there were certainly
it's a tough ask.
Some big moments from Ridley and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram and those guys, but those dudes made some hella catches.
What what did they say about Dallas Flowers after the game?
He was just 1 play in and then 1 play out and then back
play,
in.
Right?
And same thing with Kenny Moore. Ironically, the 1 play Kenny Moore was out on, Tony Brown picked off a ball. So yeah, that was a little scary when it happened.
Well, when I saw it, I'm like, you can't lose these guys.
Flowers and Moore both go down. But yeah, Jalen Jones, the rookie, went in there for Flowers. Tony Brown went in for Kenny Moore. It was just 1 play, and then they were back in.
239-1070. Let's head to the phones. Paul's up next here on The Fan on this Reaction Monday. Paulie, what's happening, man?
How you guys doing?
Good.
What's up, Paul?
Not much. I'm going to try to make this quick, real fast. Anybody who was during this whole Jonathan Taylor thing saying we don't need Jonathan Taylor is absolutely crazy. Had Jonathan Taylor been in that game, the Colts would have won that game hands down. Deon Jackson is too slow, can't hold on to the ball. Evan Hull looked semi-decent, but the run when Evan Hull got to the outside, Jonathan Taylor would have took that to the house. On these 3rd and shorts and 4th and short with Anthony Richardson in the backfield, Jonathan Taylor would have made them respect that a little more, and something else would have been wide open. Chris Ballard cut some of the wrong players on this cut, and it proved that on that punt when they received it at the 6-yard line, and we did not have any speed back there to even pin him in. That is what changed the game right there, that punt return. And then the last thing, defense played real good. I was more than happy with the defense, except we should have kept Rush, and from the way I see it, let Baker go, because Baker, for the life of me, cannot turn his head around when that ball is in the air. He's still looking at the defender rather than getting that head around. And all he had to do was get his head around, and some of those passes could have been defense. That's all I got, fellas. Have a wonderful day.
Paul, have a great week. Should be beautiful weather on the mail route for Paul. High energy per usual for him. Shaq Leonard exiting the tunnel. That's what I always feel like whenever Paul calls into the show. Andy, you think they signed a veteran running back in the next 48 hours? Or is Zach Moss enough for the next 3 weeks?
What's out there? Sure.
We know they've done their homework. A Kareem Hunt visit offer, a James Robinson visit.
I don't want anything to do with James Robinson. Okay, let's throw Kareem Hunt out there. Do you feel differently now after you watched the game, to throw out some of the meager numbers the last year or two, the off the field stuff? I'm asking because the combination of Richardson, he's not going to be able to take these hits. Okay, it's game one. The offensive line that, to me, did very little to make you feel better yesterday, and the running back position with injuries and with Deon Jackson, who's going to be limited. Now, I don't think he's always going to be terrible. Yesterday, he was terrible. To me,
Andy, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen a Colts player have.
To me, if you're at this point of the season now, you're an in-season signing. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it may be panic. It may be the right thing to panic a little bit, but I don't think they thought it would look this bad, right?
13 carries for Deon Jackson yesterday. That amassed 14 yards, so that would be 1.1 yards per carry. If you want to go to his receptions, how about 5 catches for 14 yards? Not a lot of production there. And then on top of that, 2 fumbles and what I thought was a really critical third quarter drop as well.
This is his chance, is it not? Like, the way I view Deon Jackson is you're going to get 4 weeks here without Jonathan Taylor no matter what. Zach Moss misses game 1. Who knows, if he's going to be available game 2 and if he'll be on any sort of a pitch count coming back from the arm injury. It's kind of like one of your chances here to do something.
The Colts knew this for a month They knew for a month a strong possibility was Deon Jackson starting the opener. Zach Moss being ready for week 1 was always iffy. And the Jonathan Taylor situation, obviously, has been extremely iffy. And so for a month, you've thought to yourself, okay, we can be content with Deon Jackson, and the results were that. It was a cuttable game from Deon Jackson. For a guy with his lack of resume,
I know.
You cut Rodrigo Blankenship after the opener last year for missing a game-winning field goal. Deon Jackson had moments where he flat out cost you the football game. I don't know if you're in a position from a quantity standpoint at running back with the Evan Hall injury to just flat out cut him, but that's what it was. Just to give a little bit of context on the 1.1 yards per carry. Yesterday, to start the third quarter, the Colts honored the 1984 Indianapolis Colts team. So I can do the math. I know Ryan Bowen will be 40 coming up in March.
Well, that's when I was born, too.
It's the 40-year anniversary of the Colts playing in the Circle City. Yesterday's 1.1 yards per carry for Deon Jackson was the second worst in Indianapolis Colts franchise history. You go with a dozen carries in a game, which ain't a lot. Dozen carries in a game, not a lot. Of all the running backs in the history of the Indianapolis Colts, that was the second worst performance. And again, Andy, I'm just talking yards per carry. I'm not talking about the 2 balls that he put on the turf with fumbles or the critical drop that he had as well.
And half of his 14 yards came on 1 carry. He had a long of 7 So half of his 14 yards were from one run.
And poor Evan Hall got around the corner there and had a run.
Does
and
that
then
lead off the highlight reel?
I don't know. Him and Cam Akers battling for.
Do we see more Jake Funk now?
Him and Cam Akers battling for rushing ineptitude. Cam Akers yesterday, by the way, 22 carries for 29 yards.
Did you have him in fantasy? You're all over Cam Akers.
I have him in our league.
Okay, there we go. KB, that's the second time he mentioned it before you got here this morning. He's like, this damn Cam Akers.
I think I fell into the Akers hype maybe last year.
I'm pretty sure I'm 0 for this weekend in everything.
The year before that.
Teams, Colts, fantasy, everything.
Mark, I know we got a couple Adams here on the line. Pick whichever one you want to go with here.
All right, let's go for there's 2 Adams. We're going to go with Adam 1 since he was there first.
Adam 1. How we doing on this Monday morning?
Hey, guys, am I Adam 1? Am I on?
You are on loud and clear.
Congratulations.
Number one, baby. Let's go. All right, guys. All in all, I thought Richardson played pretty well considering how poor the offensive line was yesterday. They made Josh Allen look like a first-team Pro Bowler with 3 sacks. It was just awful. I mean, for a young rookie quarterback, I thought he played tremendously. Like, besides that interception, I'm gonna give it up. Like, Richardson played his you-know-what off yesterday. Like, he had no time in that pocket. I want to hear your thoughts on really how this offensive line from a pass protection and a run protection played yesterday, because the Jags are not a top-tier defense. They're going to see some better defensive fronts, and they played awful yesterday. Just wanted to hear your thoughts, guys. Thanks, man. Have a good Monday.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate the call. I thought run blocking wise, Andy, just absolutely awful, to say the least. There, I'd have to go back and look at the Richardson sacks. I know he was sacked 4 times in the game. Andy, I want to say 2 of those were on just a flat-out scramble where he literally went out of bounds. Josh Allen just met him.
And it counts as a sack if you're behind the line of scrimmage.
Right. So I don't. It's not like they were outright sacks. Obviously, you had the sack early on where Allen, I think, caught him from behind, and then I think you had one more later.
Allen's a dude, man.
In the game, yeah. I mean,
he's a dude.
He's a top 5 pick. Yeah. So, in general, I thought you lacked support for Richardson. But again, I thought if you want to narrow down the O-line to pass protection versus run protection, I thought Bernard Ryman, did a really nice job in pass protection. I thought the run game was more of the issue. The Richardson game yesterday was a really interesting one for me, Andy. He was more of like a methodical passer early on. He missed that first ball of the game on that second down throw. Then he hit 6 in a row after that. At one point, I remember looking down and being like, man, he's like 15 of 19. Like, this is not what I expected out at Richardson. Again, I've said for, all along, I think you got to live with the inconsistencies from a completion percentage standpoint, but the goal is to offset that with the big plays. We really didn't see the big plays, and that was an issue that I had with Shane Steichen of Anthony Richardson's strengths, where he is best as a thrower, is when you let him uncork it. And I feel like you just have to dial up 2 or 3 a game. Even if they fall incomplete, you at least send a message to the defense of saying, this is a possibility. Think twice about bringing that safety up to the line of scrimmage here. So that's where I thought the Richardson experience was just a little bit more like, in a way, like Gardner Minshew-like from a throwing standpoint. Obviously, his legs are a totally different animal. And then lastly, on Richardson, he got into that great rhythm after the first miss of the game, was really, really steady, and then all of a sudden everything turned midway through the third quarter. And I think that was I think he missed 7 of 8 at one point.
Yeah, that's where he was 1 of 7 with the pick. Yep.
And that was like once they tied the game, and then they took the lead. Obviously, they took the lead off the Buckner touchdown there. And that, I thought, was a reference to his post-game comments. His post-game, and Mark, do we actually have that clip, like the every play matters comment from Richardson?
Well, I have one here. I don't know if this is the exact one you're looking for. Do you want to hear it?
Sure, dial it up.
This is the game, the takeaway. This is the game overall. Here you go.
Yeah, I like to get here early, get my body right, get my mind right, go through the script of the game, make sure I'm precise on plays, make sure I'm getting extra reps with the receivers if they need them, just making sure I'm here, just feeling the building, feeling the atmosphere, just feeling everything. So I was pretty hyped, getting here. I was pretty focused, pretty calm. Throughout the game, emotions were everywhere. I was happy. I was a little bit more chilled, and I was happy again. So that was that. And then after the game, I was a little hurt, because I feel like we had it. We just got to clean some things up as an offense. I feel like the defense helped us out a lot. We just couldn't, do anything for them at the time. But, I felt good throughout the whole thing, and, it's just something we got to learn from and just work on.
There's a comment Richardson had where he expands on just kind of like every play matters, every drive matters.
I don't think we have that one. Yeah, I don't think we have that one.
And again, I know it sounds like a very simple comment, but when they tied the game, when they get the lead, the offense had 5 straight empty drives. And I'm not talking about 5 straight scoreless drives. Andy, they had 5 drives where they didn't even get a first down. That obviously is very hard to do in the NFL. And within that stretch, that's when Richardson was, 1 of 7 or 1 of 8. And then he threw that pick to Tyson Campbell, which kind of iced the game. So that is where eventually we'll get to a point in evaluating him as a quarterback where that stuff matters. I mean, that stuff is really critically evaluated of. Second half, teams are making adjustments. You're playing with more of a bullseye. You've got a chance to pull off a big upset here. That's where you get a little bit more into the critical aspects to, 2-minute fourth quarter. That's what separates the average QBs from the elite quarterbacks. And I think that's, again, I'm not ripping him by any means. It's his first ever NFL game.
Come on, KB, rip him.
But those are the sorts of situations that we'll eventually get to with him of like, okay, can you do even more of the lifting? Right now he's got to do way too much, but those are the times it kind of separates you as a quarterback. And Trevor Lawrence, to be fair, he made some big-time throws there.
Listen,
in those moments.
This is the issue that we're going to have. Richardson is not going to, listen, I'm 100% with you. Richardson's not going to be ripped much this season because Colts fans, and it's the reality, and the Colts fans are right today. The reality is, and we've been talking about it, you've been talking about it longer than I have, that the roster around him is not good enough.
Yeah, it stinks.
And so it's different if you're Tua today, right? Or if you're Justin Herbert and they play. I mean, it's different. Joe Burrow, we understand he's established. He's been to a Super Bowl. He'll go to the AFC Championship game. He very well could this year. But they deserve to be ripped for throwing for like 80 yards and scoring 3 points against the Cleveland Browns when you have all that money invested in all those superstars. That's not Anthony Richardson. And to me, it's going to be, listen, he will make mistakes, and we may get to a point this season where they lose a couple games, KB, where he makes mistakes, and it's like, dude, you can't make that mistake. You can't miss that throw. You can't fumble the ball. You can't throw that interception. We're not ripping him on the interception today, and we're not doing that because no one respects the roster around him. Michael Pittman was fantastic. He was also alone out there. We talked about these 5 tight ends. We talked about these damn tight ends. And Granson, he was fine. He was fine.
Ogletree gets knocked out of the game, to be fair.
He was fine. It was just one of those things. It wasn't like it was tight end, and that was something they were able to exploit. And then, you were looking to see what the offensive line would do. And it's showtime, and it's game 1. And so when you don't trust the running back, you have the Jonathan Taylor stuff. You feel good about Downs and Pittman, but you're not maybe totally in love with what they have there. Obviously, Pierce, 1 catch on the day, and then the offensive line was a yikes. It's like, I'm not saying Richardson's going to get a pass. At some point, that will stop. But, game 1 for me, I'm not going to rip him on the interception or running the ball or anything else. He's out there, and he sees what we're seeing. He understands what's going on as much as anybody.
And flat out, you just want him to be in those moments. That's why you play him. That is exactly why you have him out there, to experience what you cannot script in practice whatsoever. Last thing I'm going to add, Andy, on Richardson, and I think the opponent yesterday is the perfect example of it. I think Chris Ballard needs to look long and hard of what Jacksonville did with Trevor Lawrence from year 1 to year 2. They realized that it was not good for Lawrence around him year 1, mainly to do with their head coach situation with Urban Meyer, but even personnel. And what did they do? Let's just take the guys you would label as cast-offs, guys that didn't get retained by their former teams, because I don't think Calvin Ridley falls into that group. But what did they do with Christian Kirk and paying him massive money? What did they do with Zay Jones? What did they do with Evan Ingram? And then just watch the 60-minute of football that we did yesterday. Those dudes, who I think a lot of people, when they were signed by Jacksonville last offseason, labeled them as
C players getting B-plus money.
Ingram was kind of a bust with the Giants.
And look at what they have done to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, there were some big-time 50-50 balls, if that. The Zay Jones touchdown is one of the better ones that you're going to see. Ingram had a hell of a catch near the Colts sideline. That was a big play as well. I mean, that is why you invest in the skill and the support. Did Trevor Lawrence throw some great balls? Certainly. But those guys helped him and supported him. And that's why, if you are the Colts, look long and hard at that. You can never have enough at those positions, particularly when your quarterback is young. And in a way, I almost feel unfair comparing Richardson to Lawrence because their collegiate careers were so different in how they entered the NFL. Expectations-wise, really, really different. But yesterday, when Zay Jones is a number 3 wideout, looks like that, and Alec Pierce is your number 2 wideout, looks like that, how do you not think to yourself, you need to invest more in those skill positions around Anthony Richardson?
Can I respond to that? Do you want to do a check down real quick? And then on the other end of the break, I'll respond to that. I agree with you. I'm going to play devil's advocate just on one little item with what you just said.
Cool. And we'll also get to our GOAT of the weekend. That can be positively or negatively, however you want to look at it. And certainly get to your fan tweets reaction as well. Let's hit a morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, obviously a busy weekend, and it comes to an end tonight. Bills and Jets, that's Monday Night Football. You had Atlanta 24-10, Browns 24-3 over the Bengals. Vikings losers at home 20-17. How about Bulls getting the win there? How about that? Saints 16-15 over the Titans. I picked the Titans to win the AFC South. Niners all over the Steelers 37. Commanders 20-16 over Arizona. The Ravens 25-9. Packers, sorry Mark, 38-20 over the Bears in Chicago. Let me read all these. Eagles 25-20 over the Patriots. Huge game, over 700 yards of offense with the Dolphins and Chargers 36-34. Miami on the road getting the win there. Rams 30-13. I thought that was one of the more surprising results going into Seattle and winning that one. And then the Cowboys embarrassed the Giants. Just absolutely embarrassed them 40 to nothing. I'm sorry you guys had to watch that on Sunday Night Football.
I thought there was a point in the fourth quarter you might get in for the Giants there. Bills Jets tonight. Who we going with? Bills favored by 1.5.
Bills.
You know what? Just give me the Bills. I don't know. Yeah, give me the Bills. Let's go.
Rodgers' debut gets spoiled.
Let's go, Buffalo.
Sounds like a bitter Bears fan suffering a Week 1 loss to the Packers there. Right. College football from this weekend. Irish, Boilermakers, Hoosiers, they all win. Purdue and Notre Dame had to withstand a little bit of a weather delay. How about Notre Dame? Poor planning on their part. They literally didn't have enough food for the weather delay. They had to go to the concession stands and get hot dogs and brats.
Did they really?
And then their running back, Audric Estime, rips off an 80-yarder with a hot dog just sitting right there in the old stomach of his. Notre Dame, 45-24. Big fourth quarter for the Irish. That should set up Ohio State here a week from Saturday.
Did the scoreboard get hit with lightning in that game, too?
Yes.
How about that?
And again, Indiana over Indiana State. Deon Jackson looked pretty good in that one. I assume he will be the starter this Saturday with Louisville coming to Lucas Oil Stadium, but we'll have to await official word on that. And Purdue, much needed split in these first two games. They win in Blacksburg. Big-time defensive effort from the Boilers there. They will welcome Syracuse to Ross-Ade on Saturday night.
Yeah, Reds winners last night, 7-1. Lose the series, though, 2 out of 3 to St. Louis. You cannot like that if you're a Reds fan. A game and a half back. The Giants, Marlins, and Diamondbacks all in front of them. The Cubs gave up a couple games as well. Winners yesterday, but lost 3 of 4 to Arizona. They still lead by 2. Dumark's Cubbies lead by 2 as we head into the final, 15 games of the season.
Got about, 3 or 4 kind of local-ish items of note to run down here. Scott Dixon wins the season finale in IndyCar. The Fever win their season finale. Now all eyes on where they're going to draft here coming up from a lottery standpoint. And by the way, we talked about the U.S. Open a little bit in tennis. Shout out to Rajiv Ram. That is a Carmel native. He wins his 3rd straight doubles title in the U.S. Open. I think Salisbury is his partner's last name. I remember Salisbury Steak back in the day at Cherry Tree Elementary. I don't know if it's any relation to Sean, but that has never been done before. So shout out to Rajiv Ram, a great, great human, as they win a doubles title. Djokovic and Coco Gauff, your singles champions. Pretty cool scenes from Coco Gauff celebrating that victory.
Is it wrong, guys, that when he said Salisbury, I thought of Sean Salisbury, I thought of Salisbury steak, and then I thought of Chris Berman in that order? It's that wasn't what you were thinking of?
Well,
when you
no, I
went to
think
the
that's
steak?
totally fair. Yeah.
Okay,
I want to say this guy's name is John, but I could be wrong.
You weren't going to Chris Berman there? I thought me and you were kind of on the same wavelength, that you were kind of doing a Chris Bermanism.
Literally picturing the styrofoam tray at Cherry Tree Elementary. I think Thursdays were always Salisbury steak days.
Sean Salisbury is on my all-time blank list because I was at Bears training camp when I was a youth, as like a teenager, and they had Otis Wilson of the Bears. They were interviewing him, and I was like, I want to get Otis Wilson's autograph. And Sean Salisbury just happened to be one of the co-hosts. So I got Otis Wilson's autograph. I was thrilled. Sean Salisbury grabs the football, signs his name, which I wasn't asking for, right in the middle of the C logo of the Bears. So I have all these Bears autographs. I have Sean Salisbury's autograph right in the damn center of the C.
I thought you were going to say he turned you down for it.
No, I didn't ask for it.
Sounds even worse, honestly.
It really does.
Based off Mark's story.
It really does.
You want to play a little devil's advocate?
Well, you want to do it on the other side?
Yeah,
Let's do it on the other side.
Okay, we'll do that on the other side. Again, get to GOAT of the Week. And still want to go back to that Zaire Franklin to DeForest Buckner combo touchdown. The Franklin reaction of, was it a heady play by the captain? Not necessarily. We'll share that on the other side. It's a wake-up call with KB and Andy here on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
1st and 20. Move the ball back to their own 36-yard line. Moving left to right. Colts defense trying to make a play here, down by a field goal. Lawrence goes out of the gun. 4 receivers into the pattern. Ball on the left hash. Lawrence plants in the pocket. He's hit as he throws. The ball is out. There's a fight for it around the 35-yard line.
Get the ball.
The play's still going. Pick it up. The Colts pick it up. It's DeForest Buckner. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. Stretching for the pylon. Touchdown! Touchdown for the defense. DeForest Buckner picks up a live football and races the other way for a score.
By the way, that's a fantastic call. I love everything about that. The Maytay call, and then Coach, get the ball.
On it.
Get the ball. That's what football's supposed to sound like on the radio on the Fan on a Sunday.
So good. The Rick Venturi raw emotion I absolutely love week in, week out. You know, that play, Andy, for, I would say, long stretches. I mean, hell, the Colts had a lead midway through the fourth quarter. I almost forget a little bit of that. And I'm thinking, that play, we're going to talk about that for like years to come. I mean, it was a wild, wild play. Obviously, Buckner absolutely whips his one-on-one matchup, forces the strip, and then there's Tank Bigsby, the rookie running back for the Jags.
Third time he's ever touched the ball in the NFL.
Literally.
Probably.
Standing there and gets the ball, and then here comes Zaire Franklin, just kind of like karate chop, punches the ball out, and Buckner then scoops it up off the ground. We saw the return, all of that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, after the play, I'm like, man, what a heady play by Zaire Franklin. There's the rookie in Bigsby, not really knowing what to do with it. There's Zaire Franklin. What is he, a 4-time captain? He's been in the league now for 6 years. That is just veteran, better than rookie. Mark, do we have this clip?
So it's like 4.5 minutes long. It's not edited.
Okay.
If you'd like me to edit it,
Yes.
I'm working
Here's what was happening. I knew.
Let me know when you get it,
I
Mark.
knew where you were going, but I saw Mark and I knew what happened. He was editing on the fly. I was like watching kind of a car wreck happen on Sports Talk Radio.
And there's also a word in there that maybe we can't necessarily play on air, so we want to make sure that we have that bleeped out before we play it. So before we get to Zaire Franklin's answer on that, I do think, and I mean this in all seriousness, obviously that play was wild, but Buckner starts it all with the strip sack. And Andy, what did we talk about all last week? Playmaking out of your defensive line. Timely playmaking out of your defensive line. And just in general, whether it was that play by Buckner, Tony Brown catches the ball off of, I guess it would have been Etienne's hand. I don't think it was Bigsby, off of Etienne's hands for the interception. Julian Blackman has the near pick. EJ Speed has the strip that he almost falls on it in play. 2 turnovers, 2 more very close to turnovers. That element of playmaking for your defense was severely lacking last season. The guy that I would argue probably most often made those plays, particularly the timely ones, we watched, unfortunately for you, against your Giants last night, and Stephon Gilmore make another one of those plays. There's legit questions about how much Shaq Leonard can get back to his normal self there. So the fact that you exit yesterday against, I think, a pretty good offense, and you have made, a handful of turnover-type plays, that is stuff that you look at a rookie quarterback next week and you think, man, can that be a little bit more routine than it was last season? Because of all the issues last year, somewhere on that list, not enough defensive playmaking.
317-239-1070. We'll get a couple calls here before we get to the top of the hour. We'll keep taking them in the 9 o'clock hour. Mark, you moved the mic close to you. Do you have the sound ready? Oh, you found it already.
It's edited.
Okay.
You just tell me when to fade it out, but I'll just play it.
Shout out to Lara Overton. She asked Zaire Franklin afterwards about the wild play, and again, Zaire's reaction in punching the ball out of Tank Bigsby's hands.
Seemed like everyone kind of thought the play was dead. Take us through exactly that series of events for you.
Oh, so I dropped back in coverage, seen the ball kind of go out, didn't really hear a whistle. Saw Jacksonville's player pick it up. To be honest, I really was just trying to be an asshole, so I punched the ball out.
All right, well, here's my thing. Okay,
Can we give it up? Can we give it up for honesty on that?
Yes, I love it. Give it up for honesty.
He could have lied to all of us and been like, I had a Pee Wee coach that always said,
play to the whistle.
Play to the whistle.
Play to the whistle.
I mean, we all would have believed him.
We would have loved it. Oh, that's a football guy.
To be honest, I really was just trying to be an
Okay, well, here's the thing.
So hold your tongue and say apple, right? Is that what we're going for there?
I forgot all about that, but that's like third grade.
Yeah, hopefully Rosie Bowen doesn't do that anytime soon.
First
kids still do
a
that?
whole new word today.
I was about to say, do kids still do that?
Yeah.
I forgot all about that. At one point in my life, I probably did that. But
Cherry Trail Elementary. Shout out again. I probably did that.
I was
Salisbury Steak.
I was 35 years old when I did that. Isn't that a penalty? He's risking he could be risking a penalty there, would be my only thing. Again, I love it. It turned out to be a great play. It turned out to be a heavy play.
Didn't think he heard a whistle for what it's worth. Yes, I know.
He did punch the ball out of Bigsby's hands.
Well, and honestly, you know what I was thinking of, Andy, after hearing that is, remember what happened in the joint practice with the Eagles? Zaire Franklin and Jason Kelsey getting it. Like, Zaire Franklin's got a little bit of that in him.
He's got that dog in him.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And,
he's a good player, man.
We're talking 3-time captain at Syracuse. I think the second ever in the history of their program, first in like over a century. Pretty unique dude. 18 tackles for him yesterday. That is obviously an eye-popping number. And I thought just in general, Franklin made some plays in space that I'm not necessarily as accustomed with him making. I thought he was really, really good for the Colts yesterday. And again, Shaq Leonard with 8 tackles, a little bit of a pitch count for him. EJ Speed did spell him at times, but I thought Leonard made some plays in space as well that I was uncertain of. So that linebacker crew in general, I thought had a nice afternoon, and they have to be salivating at the C.J. Stroud debut, 5 sacks.
Yeah, but I mean,
he threw the ball 40. The rookie.
He threw the ball 40 sometimes.
But again, this Colts defense is proven, and I thought they proved it for long stretches. I know ETN ripped off the one there at the end, but for long stretches yesterday, that Jacksonville run game, I'm like, is Press Taylor really calling another run? I mean, Indy's run defense pretty much shut down Jacksonville for 3.5 quarters, and I think they can do that to Houston. Then do you force C.J. Stroud into these obvious passing situations, and then can you pin your ears back? The early line for that game. Have you guys seen that?
I have not seen that. I
want to take a gander at Texans home against Colts coming up on Sunday?
I mean, the Colts played so much better than the Texans. But Texans at home.
I'm going to say the Colts are 2.5-point favorites.
I want to say Colts maybe 1.5.
Looks like you guys are jumping on Colts money line right now. Texans favored by 1.5.
By 1. Okay, so it's flipped the other way. You want to take one call before we take a break? One more call, and then on the other end, we'll get to it. I think there is when you talk about putting pieces around Anthony Richardson, I think for me, I'm 4 weeks into doing this show with you. I see it from a different way, and I wanted to throw that your way. Who do we have? Do we have Adam number 2?
Adam number 2 is still hanging strong. I don't know if he fell asleep maybe, but he's
I hope
still
he
there.
did. Adam number 2, fire away, buddy. You're on the fan.
Yeah, this is Adam too. One thing
sounds like Richardson a little bit here.
Yeah. One thing I noticed that last series when Richardson was still in there, the cameras caught it, but he lost his cards for his wristbands, and I think that's what led to the just 2 awful-looking draws where he's running up Fry's butt and can't figure out what to do with it. I mean, that's good in 2 ways because you could see him say just like F it, and he just tore the armband off, and he's like, I'm going to do this myself. But then also, why is after a whole off season and practice and stuff, that's all you got? Like, I'm going to do it myself, and my choice is to run up one of the worst linemen we have and follow him on that goal line, those 2 goal line plays. That's a little bit concerning, but overall, I would say, I mean, he looked like I thought he was going to look. He made plays that were great. He made plays that were like, what are you doing? But that third quarter was rough.
Yeah, after the Pittman touchdown. Thank you, Adam, by the way. Richardson also lost the armband play sheet. I remember one point in the first half, somebody from the equipment staff had to run out there and either give him a new one or give him the old one. So I think that might be on the equipment staff duties for this week. Yeah, Richardson had the 4th and 5 draw, which his second effort, it was a hell of a second effort to get the first down. And then same play on the very next play, that's when he got hurt. So he had the back-to-back ones there.
But, again, Andy, kind of goes back to the consistent nature that you didn't have. I mean, at one point, he's 15 of 19, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, this debut is rather incredible. And then all of a sudden, once you tied the game, and I don't know if it was second half adjustments or was water finding its level, however you want to describe it, but there were a couple of throws. Like, he had Granson over the middle that would have been a huge third down conversion. And I know there was a Jacksonville linebacker that was kind of close to obstructing that view, but Richardson, we've seen him make that throw. He had the really nice throw to Downs early in the game with a guy in his face. He missed that one. Obviously, he had the interception. So I don't want to call it a tale of two halves with Richardson, but there was certainly a stretch there, Andy, third quarter into the fourth quarter, where the passing offense just was absolutely nothing. And of course, the run game, you could say that for the entire game. And really, feast or famine. That's just how I describe the afternoon. The Colts, if you look at the Colts as a whole, Andy, they had 14 drives yesterday. 14 drives for the whole game. 10 of them went longer than 10 yards. Excuse me, 4 of them went longer than 10 yards. 10 of them went less than 10 yards. So, right there, when you look at it, 4 of the 14, you move the ball decently. One of those, of course, being the drive at the end. But the vast, vast majority, you weren't even getting a first down on them.
Coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, we'll do our Go to the Week. It could be a number of teams.
Go to the week, and it can be individuals as well. And we can get to our tweets from last night. Mark always sends out the 5 words or less describe what you just saw with the Colts. We'll read some of those coming up as well. It is the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy here, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
As a former high school
Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah. Reaction Monday with you. 317-239-1070. Hanging out, as always, in the DriveHubler.com studios. About an hour and 6 minutes to go. Jake, he'll have you at noon. JMV coming your way at 3 o'clock. Wall-to-wall coverage of NFL Week 1. Obviously, that concludes tonight with the Bills visiting the Jets. We're going to quickly do our GOATs, but let's go to, is Q still hanging online?
Q's still there.
All right, Q, fire away, buddy. Sorry to make you wait so long.
First off, the Colts need to go ahead and pay Jonathan Taylor. And secondly, Andy, welcome to Indy, but how about them Cowboys? 20-0.
Listen, brother,
20-0.
They're
going to show up.
Q, that's my Super Bowl pick right there.
Listen, Q, you can give me all the work in the world. There ain't a damn thing I can say. I'm not going to run from it. They're the GOAT of the week. Listen, the Steelers stunk it up. Mark's Bears are all playing for contracts. They stunk it up. But 40-0. Oh my God, 40-0. What a bunch of gutless.
How about them Cowboys?
Well, they all got paid, Q. All the Giants players got paid. They got fat.
Didn't the Cowboys get paid, too?
They got fat and happy. They went to NHL games and Yankees games, and they all threw out there swagged out and everything else, and they lost 40-0 in front of America. What an embarrassment.
Q, thank you for the call. He is rejoicing about his Cowboys. I know there was something that you wanted to get to double back on.
Well, I mean, we can get, I think for me, we've talked about the help. Well, I mean, you've been and we've been consistent. The help, and we can do this in the 9 o'clock hour too, the help around Anthony Richardson and everything else. I mean, part of me feels like, the Colts have been hesitant, and I understand why. They're not calling it a rebuild. Is it a retooling? And we've talked about that. And so you said, well, we need to see more around Anthony Richardson. And what did they do draft capital-wise this year? What did they do draft capital-wise? They tried to put some stuff around him, at least a little bit. I mean, you could offensive line. Josh Downs
draft, I've got zero issues.
Josh Downs is a good player. They still believe in Pierce, and Pittman had a great game. And listen, I didn't think Pittman was going to – I figured they'd be keyed on him, given that the rest of the wide receivers. And so we've talked a lot about that, and I kind of feel like they're stuck here where the Colts aren't selling you a rebuild, a reboot. They're kind of selling you a fresh start, but it's also difficult to do that when a lot of the players have been here as well. Does that make sense? They're kind of you do we talk about a haircut. Like Mark got a haircut a couple weeks ago. You know how I need one. You know how you get in that in
459 Barber Lounge.
You're damn right. You know how you get in that in between phase.
Yeah.
With the hair. That's kind of how I feel about the Colts here. It's like they're saying, well, we're not really rebuilding, but we're not. But we also don't expect a ton of wins, which is why some Colts fans, although not the callers, may leave yesterday not totally upset. But, and again, we can get into this in the 9 o'clock hour where we evaluate some units differently than others. My rebuttal to you would be, yes, they don't have as much around Anthony Richardson, but it's a new start, KB. It's a new coach who has a different way of thinking. It's a new quarterback. It's a new wide receiver. It's all these different things. People aren't going to buy it because it's the same general manager. If the Colts had a different general manager today, fans would view this much differently. You agree with that? But it's Ballard gets to do the rebuild. That's ultimately what they're not happy with here.
Right. I think there's a lot of truth of 7 years, I guess this is his 7th year. It's led to this. And this has been the age-old. I mean, the clip that we play from Ballard at the Combine, Mark, what is that, 3 years old now?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that was the Combine back in February. This has been an age-old thing, and that's why, again, it is seemingly the frustration just adds year in and year out. And now it takes on more of an onus because you do have this young project at quarterback, and the early evaluation period is so critical. And I guess one more thing to throw in, the guy on the side of the building right there on the southwest corner of Lucas Oil Stadium is obviously not playing for you. All right, 9 o'clock hour coming up. We'll continue to recap the Colts season opener yesterday. Fan tweets from the game, our GOATs of the weekend. We'll hit on all that coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Wake up call, KB and Andy, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Jason Davis hosts Warren Central on Friday Night Football. The action begins at 7 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Lawrence all by himself takes a shotgun snap to pass, plants, shuffling right, still looking, scanning, turns. Now he rolls to the left side, looking for the end zone, fires off platform, and that's a catch for a touchdown, and it's Calvin Ridley. Richardson's going to take it off and run. He's at the 50, he's at the 45, he's at the 40, left side, takes tacklers down to the 35-yard line. Richardson going to take off and run. He's in there! Touchdown! I-N-D-Y! Shotgun snap for Lawrence, hangs in the pocket. He's going to fly it towards the end zone to the right side, and making a diving attempt on the football is Zay Jones, but they're going to say he does catch the ball. Richardson, RPO, fakes it. Now he's going to screen it left side to Pittman. He's got a crease. He's at the 20, 15, 10, 5, racing for the pylon. He's in! Touchdown! Touchdown, Michael Pittman Jr. Lawrence plants in the pocket. He's hit as he throws. The ball is out. There's a fight for it around the 35-yard line.
Get the ball.
The play's still going. Pick it up. The Colts pick it up. It's DeForest Buckner. He's at the 10. He's at the 5. Stretching for the pylon. Touchdown! Here they're going to run it with ETN. Starts right, cuts off left. He's at the 20. He's at the 10. 5, touchdown. Game was on the line in crunch time. The Jaguars flex their muscle.
It always starts with myself with anything. We got to run the ball better, and it starts with me. We didn't run it as good as we should have.
Throughout the game, emotions were everywhere. I was happy. I was a little bit more chilled. Then after the game, I was a little hurt because I feel like we had it. We just got to clean some things up as an offense.
All right, 9 o'clock hour, hanging out with you. It's the wake-up call. KB and Andy hanging out in the DriveHubler.com studios. We'll keep taking your calls. 317-239-1070. Obviously, Colts losers yesterday, 31-21. We'll dive into kind of our thoughts that we had, KB, earlier in the show. We still have tons to do today. Coming up in about 25 minutes, we'll do our GOATs of the week, good and bad from the weekend, and then give us your headlines. I'm looking. This is bleeping trash. Is that a good headline?
The show or the game?
Well, I think maybe both.
Yeah.
It was yesterday, or whenever you put the tweet up again at wakeupcall_1075. If you want to find us there, we'll read some of those as we go today. Again, tons to react on, KB, and we opened the show today. And, I really felt like this was a game that was indicative of basically everything that we talked about this offseason. It was indicative of there's going to be some really good moments from Richardson, and there's going to be some moments from Richardson. I think you saw all of that. The conversation about him running the ball, obviously that was magnified. Couple different hits he took in the first half, and then exiting the game, of course, at the very end. Some questionable calls from Steichen, a new coach there. We've talked about that. The offensive line, having enough around Anthony Richardson, all of that, and then, of course, magnified by the reality. And listen, I think 99% of people believe what I believe, and as Jonathan Taylor is out there, that game is a hell of a lot different, including potentially, and you could say a win from the Colts. All the Jonathan Taylor stuff, Rappaport, Schefter in the morning with some of the Packers stuff, including Jonathan Taylor is ready to go and would pass a physical today. That's something, no crap. We know that. So all of the storylines that we talked about for weeks and months leading up to yesterday, I believe all of them, good or bad, reared their ugly heads. And, it's a mixed bag where you don't feel angry and too bad. You might. There's some positive to take away from it. I feel like we're going to be doing, KB, this dance probably for the majority of the season. A winnable game yesterday, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I thought extremely entertaining. Certainly, Andy, to have a lead midway through the fourth quarter, and I would say one of the better AFC teams, and just in general, I think one of the harder games you'll have all season long on paper. That is very encouraging. Having said that, I think just naturally, of course, you're going to be bummed. If you're one of the 60,000 in that stadium, I think when you're in that arena, it's hard not to get caught up in the emotion of like, oh, yeah, they are keeping score. This is an NFL football game. I don't think we're trained as Colts fans to be oh, yeah, let's be patient, and wins and losses don't really matter. That's like not what this market has been like.
To hell with patience.
And like that, I know it has to be, in my opinion, kept on the front burner for this season. But again, when you get into like the 60 minutes on Sunday, it's a little different, and it's hard when you have a lead, and it looks like you could pull off this upset. I think what adds to the bummer from yesterday and not being able to close it out, it was the storyline, Andy, we've been talking about all offseason, and in particular last month and a half. The lack of support for your rookie quarterback. Anthony Richardson didn't throw 3 picks. He wasn't 42% as a passer. He didn't have 2 or 3 strip sack fumbles. No. It was those around him that let him down. And mainly, I would say, the skill group, a little bit of the O-line. And I know this sounds really nerdy, but gosh, your punt unit was terrible yesterday. Rigoberto Sanchez, I don't know if it was rust coming off the Achilles, a couple of sub-40 yarders, and then I would just say a lack of just kind of not paying attention maybe on that final punt there when it bounced in front of Jamal Agnew and he scoops it up from his own 6.
Play of the game.
Just to give everybody a little bit of context around that play, Andy, 21-17, Colts lead. They punted away with about 11 minutes to go. And at that point, I mean, your defense was stingy. They were not letting Jacksonville, even with great field position, they were not letting Jacksonville really move the ball at all. On their previous, let's see if I got this right here, Andy. On Jacksonville's previous 7 drives, they had gone punt, field goal, turnover on downs, fumble, punt, turnover on downs. So that was the previous 7 drives for Jacksonville. Agnew has that spark there with the 48-yard return. They scored. They get a 4th down on that drive. Zay Jones on Zaire Franklin. That was just a great, matchup that Jacksonville got there, and a nice throw and catch to extend that drive. They retake the lead. Richardson throws the pick 2 plays later. So it's got to be a little bit of mixed emotions. I think you're encouraged by what the rookie gave you for 2.5 quarters or so. I thought him and the offense as well looked like kind of a different individual/unit once you tied the game and once you felt like, oh man, there's a chance we could win this thing. I'm curious how much the injury to Richardson in the first half impacted him, the rest of the game, impacted any play calling from Shane Steichen. But I think all in all, how do you not walk away from yesterday feeling better than Monday of week 1 last season and the Monday that we recapped of the final game back in January?
Okay, so if you're saying, and listen, this is where I'm struggling. I need you guys' help. Again, 239-1070. We'll take some calls. Go to the week coming up in 20 minutes here on The Fan. Okay, so if it's not about patience, and I want to go back to what I said 10 minutes ago. Can I do that, KB, just for a second to bring that in? And that is, fans don't want to be patient, so they leave yesterday with some good feelings. And Anthony Richardson is a huge part of that. That game was a game you led into the 4th quarter. That wasn't a Giants 40-0. It wasn't the Packers, whatever they won by. It wasn't Cleveland, beating up on the Bengals and everything else. And so there is that, but there is the other side of this, that it's the NFL, and fans don't want to be patient, and God bless them with the prices you pay to go to an NFL game, or the time and money and effort and everything to have parties and everything. You don't want to be patient. It's a bottom line business, and the bottom line business is, and this is how most fans feel, and I would say it's about as close. This is me pandering as much as I could pander right here, KB, that fans are fine if you say, okay, we're going to retool some things. There's going to be a fresh start, but they're not that way. But they're not that way with Ballard being the general manager. That's how I feel. Every single call that we have taken today, KB, has been centered around Chris Ballard. Every single one. The first sentence, I feel like, is Chris Ballard, and so they're trying to they're trying to do it's like you break up with a girlfriend, boyfriend. I don't know if it's divorce, and then you get back together. You try to do this fresh start, but there are still scars. There is still the scar tissue that is there. And so I'm with you. This past draft, I think, they've done some good things, and there were some good moments, some good Richardson moments, some good, young defensive back moments, some good defensive line moments, but it's like, okay, if it's a fresh start,
it's just an awkward nature.
Yeah, we still have the scar tissue of Chris Ballard. If there were a different GM here who hired Steichen and drafted Anthony Richardson, maybe it would be portrayed differently that, hey, guys, this is going to take some time, and then maybe Colts fans would be a little bit more okay with patience, but, that's the positive. The bottom line business is the running game and what you put around him without Jonathan Taylor is not NFL ready. There's nothing NFL ready with what they do. And then the offensive line can't get a yard multiple times. You got to be able to get a yard.
And Andy, the Jonathan Taylor not playing the opener / Zach Moss not playing the opener, the Colts didn't find that out Saturday morning.
Zach Moss was a month ago.
I mean, this was over a month-long process of some major questions on if Jonathan Taylor would even be a Colt in week 1. And then obviously Zach Moss's broken arm situation. And Ashley tweets at us and asks a question that we're kind of talking about a little bit earlier in the show. Evan Hall leaves the game there with a knee injury. So Evan Hall's status moving forward is up in the air. In my opinion, I guess Zach Moss could maybe be the replacement for Evan Hall if you're just looking like quantity for quantity, 1 for 1. I am very interested to see if the Colts make another running back veteran move in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Is it going to move the needle with anybody? I mean, it's a move, but if it's James Robinson, is that doing anything for anybody?
Is that Kenyon Drake 2.0 from back in training?
I'd rather just have Kenyon Drake.
But again, Andy, and I don't say this lightly, and I know that this is very critical, but I think there is plenty of merit to say it. Yesterday was one of the worst football games I have ever seen from a member of the Indianapolis Colts played by Deon Jackson. It was utterly horrific. The offensive line, not advantageous to him, but 13 carries for 14 yards is the second worst yards per carry in the 40-year history of the Indianapolis Colts. And then you put the cherry on top. What do you always hear about running backs? Ball security, ball security, ball security. He has 2 fumbles and a critical drop in the passing game as well. So when you add all that up, that's a cuttable performance. You cut Hot Rod after the season opener last year, and you can make the argument Hot Rod had more of an NFL resume than Deon Jackson has had at this point. I understand kickers, they're kind of in their own little world out there, but that was such a pitiful performance there. So I am very interested to see if / when they make a move there.
They'll bring in somebody. They'll bring in some guys. You can't have A, injuries, and B, Deon Jackson playing the way he did and not bring in somebody to scare the hell out of these guys, right? Especially him. Yeah, you have to.
And in my opinion, there's an element of me, Andy, that says it can't just be Zach Moss. It can't be viewed like, oh yeah, here's Moss.
He'll be back next week. Yeah,
he has a resume. I get it. That when healthy, Moss is going to be the guy that's going to have your 16, 18 carry sort of game. One thing I want to mention before we get to headlines from yesterday, a guy that you have to see more out of, absolutely have to see more out of. You had 72 offensive snaps yesterday, Andy. That's a pretty big number. 72 offensive snaps. Alec Pierce was on the field for 66 of those. Mm-hmm. He had 3 targets and 1 catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, listen, for him, it has to be proven.
It's your second-round pick. That is your number 2 wideout. The 1 catch went for 5 yards there at the end of the first half.
He didn't do anything.
66 snaps, 1 catch, 3 targets. You watch Jacksonville's number 2. You watch Jacksonville's number 3 wideout. What they did for Trevor Lawrence. You got to have more from your supporting cast.
Can I ask you something? Just for the next 45 minutes?
Yeah.
And we can talk about this tomorrow.
I'm a little nervous.
It's a long question.
Well, no.
Yeah, I got nervous here.
Is Jonathan Taylor happy about what happened yesterday? I just wonder.
I'd say his agent was running around naked watching that Colts game.
I believe so as well. mean,
he strikes me as a guy that
are they happy?
That honestly
he
could
might
do
run
that.
around naked.
Yeah. Did you see
Where's he based out of?
We can get more into this tomorrow. Did you see he liked a tweet of mine?
Did he really? I like that.
We're gonna.
Why don't you reach out to him on the old DMs?
We're gonna have to get
him
to
on
that.
the show.
Let's get to that tomorrow. Let's do our morning headlines right now. Again, for those that missed it last year, Mark sends out a tweet post game, 5 words or less. Your raw reaction to what you just saw from the Colts. Let's do that now.
I can't read it. There's no words on it. I'm Ron Burgundy, and this is what's happening in your world tonight.
Ripped from the headlines of the newspaper.
We'll do it live.
Post-game headlines.
And thing sucks.
That was Bill O'Reilly, wasn't it? Isn't that Bill O'Reilly?
Yep.
We'll do it live.
Mark, outstanding there. Andy, typically we just kind of go around it and chime in with random ones. This from Austin Richardson, promising, tank for Harrison.
Inside Horseshoe Podcast. I miss you, Jonathan Taylor.
Elvis King, this one made me laugh out loud. It's not exactly PC, but it made me laugh. Deon Jackson sucks big ass. That one made me laugh out loud.
It's not exactly PC.
That made me
I
laugh.
really hope the kids are already in school.
What an undersell! What an undersell for Mark Dykton. I love that.
Yeah.
It's not exactly
I
PC.
read that tweet and I
HR department, that was
laughed out loud.
Mark Dykton. It's a C on Mark.
AJ Hazel says a loss that's tailor-made.
That's
well done.
You know what? That's
well done.
That's the kind of thing we're looking for. Hunter Green says young rookie QB shows potential.
Aaron with a positive, and I agree wholeheartedly. Zaire Franklin is a dog. I thought Franklin was outstanding yesterday.
He was a player of the game for me. Right?
This is a little bit of a tease to maybe the Jonathan Taylor liking from the agent of the tweet that I had. Garrett goes, long snapper can't win alone.
They did sign him.
In reference to Luke Rhodes being the highest paid long snapper in the NFL.
Was it Saturday afternoon while your Notre Dame Fighting Irish
Friday afternoon, as I was watching
Friday?
Ben Shelton.
Friday.
I was locked into Ben Shelton and Djokovic there. Someone says here, what was Taylor's asking price?
Yeah.
I think in all seriousness,
I'd love to know.
That is a and again, maybe more we can get to tomorrow, but I kind of hinted at it earlier in the show. 3 for $39. That's what I've always said. 3 years, $39 million. I'm not sure the Colts would do that.
Well,
could be wrong, but that's just me.
Well, here we are then. Yeah, I don't know what
you
to
guys
tell
have any others?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Joel, offense was offensive, defense wins.
Brandon said different game if JT plays, and then Larry Cowan says at least it was entertaining, which we couldn't say about a lot of Colts games last year.
No, and I mean, that might be my biggest takeaway just in general from yesterday is, yes, not only was it more of an entertaining product, I actually thought the atmosphere was tremendous inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. I thought the crowd showed out. I know, we can hit on the lack of the roof being open. I'm like, gee, I mean, what a glorious
If you're not going to open
day
it,
yesterday.
You're not going to open it yesterday.
Inside,
When are you going to open it?
Anthony Richardson. We don't want him to play with shadows in his first game there.
Who are you by in the press box? You're by Chap and who else?
Right next to Mike Chappell, and then to the right of me, I think it's the they're in charge of like all the on-field radios.
Oh, okay.
So they have like a very important job.
They're there doing. They're very busy.
Yeah.
Kevin, get the bacon grease away from the radio.
They are. Yeah, they're like, geez, man, your 7th slice of pizza here is inferring. Or is infiltrating our station here, but I've always said this about Lucas Oil. It's one of the poor press box views, just because you are so high in that press box there. I mean, you're literally 600, 700 level. Where some stadiums like Tennessee, for example, I don't know if you've ever been to that one, Andy, but that's like 200 level.
Oh, the Titans. Oh yeah, that's where I sat next to Ryan Grigson.
No,
at the Music City Bowl one year.
There we go.
Press box in the Colts room has magnified glass, doesn't it, or no? Am I wrong on that?
Magnified glass.
Like it's almost like zoomed in a little bit. It's like a better the panes they put up there.
Really?
I swear I did a tour.
Is this right?
I did a tour and they told me they have like a magnified view, so it's you look closer than you are.
Let's just say I bring out the binoculars quite a lot during the game there. I'm still curious. I don't know. Maybe this is just me. And I'll ask Shane Steichen this a little bit later. And
Do you guys have any other tweets?
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say, are you being the media guy? My seat's not close enough.
Oh no! Sorry,
I am in the fight.
No, he hasn't played the Andy card yet.
Try watching a basketball game there.
Yeah. No, which I have. I do not want to be.
I'm sure you have
that guy at all.
I have one.
Yeah. Go ahead. One more.
Jared says, put Chris Angel in at running back. How did that go on Friday? Did you go, Mark?
I did
on
go.
Friday?
We went. It was probably I don't even know what time this concert started because it said doors opened at 4. We got there. We left Conner Prairie. We got there at 20 to 10, and the lady from Hart was still
with the three
singing.
girls, Mark.
Yeah, we didn't stay much longer, but
crazy,
we were about to
man.
leave, and all of a sudden, Ursay came out. I was like, the man he came to see, John Mellencamp. So we're like, all right, I guess we got to go back in real quick and just hear a couple songs from him. Did 3 songs and we left, so it was probably like 10:30 by the time we got out of there.
It's a late night. Look at you.
It was a late night.
I like
Saturday
that.
was a
Friday
busy day for the Dykton household.
God, I cannot say I've got that fastball.
You're
left,
a Friday night family, right?
left in me.
I think you said it was Friday night. The concert wasn't it?
Yeah,
Or was
Friday
it?
night. Yeah, I'm sorry.
But you're a Friday night family. You said Friday night. The Dykton's, we
Conner
have
Prairie
a good
and
time.
Ursay concert. Yeah.
It's a big weekend.
One thing I did want to hit on with Richardson is, and he mentioned this after the game, knee bruise is what he called it, getting hurt on actually his first ever NFL run. It was like one of those like true triple options the Colts ran yesterday. He had that, I think it was 11-yard run, and he was limping, I would say, a good amount right after that play. Stayed in the game and seemed to, adrenaline and kind of brushed it off. But I am curious, Andy, on that last hit of the game, was there anything that happened there? Because, I mean, he did leave the game and not return. Obviously, there was only, 3 plays left in the game. Gardner Minshew finished that game off, but it looked like he took quite the hit to the left shoulder, and he got medical attention on the field, and, Shane Steichen's like, I think he'll be all right. I mean, in the immediate aftermath of the game, I don't know how much merit I put to that quote, but I think let's just monitor that here early in the week. And, I thought
that's the main question today, is it not?
I thought Trevor Lawrence had some pretty wise words for Anthony Richardson afterwards and saying, protect yourself a little bit. I mean, yeah, you're down 10. The game's not totally over, but that will be a really gray area debate, Andy, that we have with Richardson a whole lot. How much does he run? When does he slide? When does he, those sorts of... I mean, Lawrence had a couple nice scrambles yesterday and a couple great slides, if you want to be, fully honest there, whereas Richardson obviously did not.
Mark, do you have that? Do you want to play that?
The Lawrence clip?
Yeah, Lawrence after the game talking about Anthony Richardson.
By the way, shout out to Zach Kiefer. We're hopefully going to have him on this week. He was there. Obviously used to cover the Colts regularly, and he was writing on Richardson. But he asked Trevor Lawrence afterwards what the former number 1 overall pick said to Anthony Richardson postgame.
Yeah, I thought he made some great plays. Obviously, it's being a rookie quarterback. It's a tough spot. There's a lot of learning you have to do, and it's just every week learning and getting better. And the only thing I told him after the game was great game. He made some unbelievable plays, but just try to protect yourself. The hits add up in this league, and they're a little different than in college. So I just told him to protect himself, and I'm excited to watch his career unfold. I think he's going to be a great player, and obviously we'll see him again later in the season, but that was my only message to him, really just protect yourself. It's a long season, and I think he's going to be a great player.
Yeah, and again, I thought that comment is such sound advice, and I know, again, it might sound like obvious stuff to say, but Andy, I have no qualms. There is little doubt about Anthony Richardson as a runner in this league. I think he will be an elite quarterback runner and a weapon for the Colts for a long time. What I do have questions about are him as a thrower in this league and him in moments like we just saw less than 24 hours ago. We saw him in big-time second half, one-possession moments, playing with the lead, playing down. How did he look? Like a 21-year-old rookie who has made 14 starts now since high school. It didn't go well, which is fine. It's game 1. But again, he needs to be on the field, Andy, just to experience all of those things. I know you can never pull out the full running ability of him and tell him, you can't run, Anthony. You must slide at all costs. Like, I get that's unrealistic. But it is so, so vital that he stays healthy for the rest of this season, gets as many reps as possible, so you don't have a Trey Lance experience. I would argue a big part of the Trey Lance stunting or the fact that he's on his second NFL team is because some injuries have kept him from playing. And in a way, Richardson and Trey Lance's lack of experience are similar. They both have not played a lot of football since high school. So that's just something that I feel like that we have to watch.
No, it's going to be one of the main storylines, and it reared its ugly head in Game 1. Now, I thought it might be Game 3, it might be Game 4, in Game 3.
I mean, he literally got hurt on his first ever NFL carry.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. He was limping there. It is nice that Trevor Lawrence is saying those things, and he is right. I want to be clear. Trevor Lawrence is right. He is also in a totally different offense where he doesn't have to run the football.
Well, twofold.
And AR's going to have to run the football.
Well, Andy, twofold. Yes, he's in a totally different offense with totally different weapons around him, but he also is a much better thrower than Anthony.
Which you saw early on.
When does, and this is the weird dichotomy, I think, with Richardson of, Lawrence is a guy that's 90% of his game is throwing, but he still can make some plays with his leg. Does Richardson get there to where, he can be a 80, 90% of my game is a thrower, but I can sprinkle in those plays? When you watch Patrick Mahomes, is Patrick Mahomes a nice runner? Yeah, but, he really only does it when it's necessary and plays are breaking down. Lawrence on the first touchdown of the game. 7 seconds. The Colts can't create any pressure. He rolls out to his left, makes a play on the run there. That is the aspect of Richardson that I'm curious about if he will get to. As we typically do on Monday recap shows. No pop quiz today.
Sorry, Scotty.
We will do some...
Is he still going to come in here and hang out with us, though? Are you breaking news to him that we don't have a pop quiz right now?
I think I might have seen the middle finger from the fourth floor.
Okay, I think I saw the email
from Scotty there. So apologies on that, and we will go with our GOATs of the week here upcoming. Before we get to that, what's the morning checkdown?
The morning checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, just quickly, NFL tonight, Bills, Jets, that gets going. That will end week 1 of the NFL. Quickly, baseball. Reds now a game and a half back for that final wild card. San Francisco and Miami and Arizona all in front of them. The Reds dropping 2 of 3, KB. Your Redlegs, 2 of 3 to the Cardinals, who haven't been in 3 months. Ugh.
Not ideal, to say the least. A lot of wins the Reds need here to close out the season. Speaking of wins, Indiana, Purdue, they both got them this weekend. For the Boilers, they had to wait. Boy, that was a long rain delay. That was 4 or 5 hours. Notre Dame's rain delay, I think it was just a little over an hour, maybe 2 hours down in Raleigh. Notre Dame beats North Carolina State. Purdue beats Virginia Tech, shut out the Hokies in the second half. Indiana beats Indiana State on Friday night. Deon Jackson, pretty good in that game. I am assuming he gets the starting nod coming up this Saturday with Louisville. Have we seen an early line on that one?
10.5. Louisville favored by 10.5.
That's a big number.
Louisville's quarterback stinks.
Jack Plummer, right? Former Boilermaker.
Yeah, Brom's about to get bench him for the 3rd time in his career. Plummer's not very good, but Louisville has an all right defensive line, and they, their weapons are pretty good.
Syracuse favored by 2.5 on the road against Purdue coming up.
That's a good
on
game.
Saturday.
That's a good game.
Should we ride with Indiana and Purdue both to cover that?
I'm riding right now tentatively with Indiana, if I can even get it up to 11, and I might try to look at the over-under there and play the under if I believe in Tom Allen's defense.
Last time Alabama and Clemson were both 1-1 2 weeks into the season?
1984. 1991. Mark, you got anything? 2002.
I'm just picking all the decades.
Yes. I thought I saw it was 2003, but you know what? To be fully transparent, I probably should double check that.
Matter.
Is the Pac-12 still undefeated?
Facts are optional. I know who's not undefeated, the SEC against other teams. Quickly, Mel Tucker suspended without pay there at Michigan State. That's a bad story. And then Team USA embarrassing themselves in the FIBA. I know you cared about that.
I did.
An embarrassment.
They lost to Canada as well for the bronze medal. I saw Canada their first medal in men's basketball since 1936.
Good for them.
There, you already have LeBron James saying he'll play in the Paris Olympics, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. So be very curious to see who now commits for the Olympics and where Tyrese Halliburton kind of fits in. Because I do think Halliburton played well for Team USA, better than Jalen Brunson.
Listen, I'm with you. He should be on the bench.
So how that it might be good to get a Pacers person on this week. Just to talk a little bit about that. We're about a month, probably less than a month from training camp starting. Daniel Tyson, the Germans, they get the silver medal as Serbia, without Nikola Jokic, wins the World Cup. A few other items of note. Scott Dixon wins the season finale for IndyCar. What was that, 3 of the final 4 races of the year, Scotty? That Scott Dixon took home. The Fever win their season finale.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't really know, to be totally honest with you. And then in the U.S. Open, shout out to Carmel's Rajiv Ram, a doubles champion. Joe Salisbury, by the way. That was the name I was looking for.
There you go.
Earlier, I just assumed Salisbury steak. Him and Joe, Rajiv Ram and Joe Salisbury, 3 straight U.S. Open double titles. That has never been done before. I distinctly remember myself, Kevin Lockery, and I going to our neighborhood tennis courts and acting like we were Rajiv Ram back in the day when he was winning state titles at Carmel. So, hell of a career for him. I'm pretty sure. Scotty, do you know, did he win a gold medal with Venus Williams at the Olympics? They won some medal. Was it gold? I think in the Rio Olympics.
You going to break the news to Scotty, who's in his all Buffalo Bills gear, that we're not doing the pop quiz on a Monday?
I know, Scotty.
Yeah.
Were you walking up the steps, Scotty?
Look at his face right now.
I know. I'm afraid to look.
You should be afraid to look. This was not. I'm the new guy.
Silver.
I'm the new guy, Scotty. It's
silver
all these,
medal.
It's all these. It's all these veterans. I'm the new guy.
Rio Olympics for Rajiv Ram, silver medal.
Should we carve
Venus
out?
Williams.
Should we carve out a mini segment where KB talks about tennis players that lived in Carmel at one point in their life? We have done that for 4 days in a row, have we not?
I think the tennis talk will probably subside until the Australian Open.
Is it the Farmers Open? That's a golf one, I know. What's the next one that they have on the ATP tour that you can follow?
Can't say I know a whole lot. I did enjoy watching Ben Shelton against Djokovic.
I know you did.
Was some.
You got me following.
There was some electricity there for him. That was a fun story to follow. Shout out to the Witskin family for that. All right, on the other side, Scotty, apologies, no pop quiz. Let's do our goats of the week, good and bad. We will recap that on the other side here. It's a wake-up call with KB and Andy, touching on the season opener for the Colts yesterday.
It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Thank you, Steve, for this. Hand raised, Andy Sweeney, for yours truly.
What
to all
happened?
the Germans out there. It was Germany. Daniel Tice took home the gold. They beat Serbia in the championship match yesterday. Of course, I say match. Nothing says like two European countries like calling a basketball game a match there. Is Daniel Tice the Pacers' backup center this year?
Sure. Yeah. We'll go with an early. We'll go with an early yes. He's a gold medalist. He better be.
He was really good against the Americans in the semifinal game. I know we were watching a little bit of that on Friday.
Here's the thing: we have 3 other people in the studio with you, and you said that, and no one corrected you. No one did anything.
If not him, then who?
Well, Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith. Yeah, I don't know if those are
Isaiah Jackson. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Ringing endorsements on that end. All right, every Monday here in football season, we do our goats of the week. That can be all caps goat or bah. Mark Dykton, lead us off.
Who is the GOAT?
I told you all that I was the greatest of all time.
Jordan, here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good!
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Or GOAT?
This guy sucks.
Of the week.
All right, let's start with our all caps, our goats from the weekend. I'm going to give a shocking one here. I did not expect this result at all yesterday. Our Survivor League, we're already done. How about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Minnesota with Baker Mayfield?
You're done already, week 1?
And winning. Well, I'm in with my in-laws.
Can you get a buyback?
We took the Ravens with one team. We took the Vikings with the other. So, yeah, the Tampa Bay Bucks, Todd Bowles, the fearless NFC South, they get it done 20-17. So, shout out to Baker Mayfield and company. Chase McLaughlin with the 57-yard field goal, the eventual game winner.
You know Todd Bowles loved winning that. Was it 17-16?
2017.
Oh, 2017. That's a Todd Bowles game.
That is.
And Vrabel, in a one-score game with Dennis Allen. I mean, that was 16-15. Those 4 coaches had to love that. 16-15. That's football. We don't need to throw the ball all over the yard. Well, my good ones, hey, listen. Might go to the week's Quinn Ewers at Texas.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, I
like that.
He balled out.
On the road.
Yeah, I mean, at Alabama, on passes 20-plus yards downfield, going into that Alabama game, he was 22% on those particular throws, 60% Saturday night, and that was the talk of college football with Sark in Texas and all the horns down and everything. You had Texas fans chanting SEC on the field in Tuscaloosa.
So there's no way Arch Manning plays this year, right?
No, no. He's going to sit this season.
Is that how it's looking?
Yeah, I mean, Ewers at 349-3. He had a rating of 166, a QBR of 90.
Mark, who you got?
My good is a defensive unit. The Dallas Cowboys absolutely throttled the New York Giants.
Did you have them in fantasy?
No, I didn't. And I played the guy who did. And he also had Brandon Ayuk in his flex, so that really screwed me. Anyway, the Dallas Cowboys, 7 sacks, 2 interceptions, a fumble. The special teams also blocked a field goal, returned it for a touchdown, 2 touchdowns total. They absolutely decimated Daniel Jones and the Giants offense and just depleted their fan base in one game. 40-0. My goodness. That was just a dominating performance.
On your league, how many points was that good for? Do you have that in front of you?
37.
Like if you went to bed and you led by 19, and let's say no one had a Monday Night Football guy playing tonight, okay? And you led by 19. You have to think, even while the Giants are driving in that first drive, KB, you have to think you're going to win, right? You're going to wake up, and if a good defensive performance is 15 points, you still got a little bit of a buffer. You're
as soon as they return the block field goal,
then you're in trouble.
Then it's nightmare night.
Well, then you knew that you were in a little bit of trouble, and you wake up and they drop 40 points. They drop 40 points in fantasy, and you lose by 20.
All right, Andy, your lowercase goat of the week. I have a feeling you might be playing off of
that.
Listen, I'm going to play off of that. No, I mean, listen, Pittsburgh to me was very disappointing, and I thought they were going to be a playoff team, and they were very disappointing. Cincinnati was disappointing, but I think they'll be fine. They'll regroup. But I mean, Pittsburgh would have been, to me, would have won this had the Giants not been. I mean, they were just so bad last night. I mean, Daniel Jones, 15 of 28, a buck 4, two interceptions. We talked about Quinn Ewers having like that huge game on the college end. He had a rating, Daniel Jones last night, of 32. His QBR was 8. Their leading receiver had 36 yards. They fumbled. They couldn't hold on to the ball. And that's a game that I thought the Giants could win, or they lose 27-24.
Well, that's a big divisional game.
They are the embarrassment of the weekend. Any sport, absolutely.
Mark, who you got?
My bad goes to a guy who just got a big fat contract in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, and the Cincinnati Bengals were terrible.
Now, how much was weather impacting that one?
Care.
I didn't watch much of it.
I don't know how much it was. He threw 31 times. He had 82 yards. He was sacked twice. No touchdowns, no interceptions, an average of 2.6 yards a completion. I mean, maybe they were right. He should have sat out like the first week until I don't know if health had anything to do with it. But he was just bad. It was not good. They pulled him out, put in Jake Browning for a little bit. That didn't go well either. Ooh. Bad for the Bengals. Bad.
I think listeners of the show will know where I'm going for my bad goat of the weekend. As I've said all morning long, I thought it was one of the worst Colts performances in the history of their franchise. That would be running back Deon Jackson, 13 carries for 14 yards. One more time on that. 13 carries for 14 yards. That is in yards per carry of 1.1. That is the second worst in the 40-year history of the Indianapolis Colts. If you go off of guys that have carried it at least 12 times in a game, and to put the cherry on top of all that, 2 fumbles and a dropped pass for Deon Jackson. I think this is pretty much what sums up yesterday for the Colts. Travis Etienne, he went 26 yards on that touchdown run to pretty much ice the game. Again, 26 yards on one run. If you add up Deon Jackson's 14 yards, Jake Funk's 10 yards, Evan Hall's yard, that's 25 yards on 16 carries. Ooh. So the Colts had 16 Colt running backs, 16 carries for 25 yards. Travis Etienne, final carry of the game, 26 yards.
That's one of those where Steichen, I know, after the game and today would be like, it's on me. We have to be able to run the ball. It's like, it is on you, but it's also on Chris Ballard and the Colts and Jonathan Taylor and that entire drama.
And let's not absolve the offensive line either.
You know I'm not doing that. I'm not doing
better chance Deon Jackson is cut or the Colts sign a veteran running back?
I'm going to go with sign a veteran running back. Do you agree with that?
I think I would as well. Again, yesterday's performance to me is cuttable, but clearly they like him enough. I mean, he was the starting running back for the last month, really, ever since Zach Moss went down. Again, I think there's a good chance Zach Moss plays on Sunday. Evan Hall gets hurt in that game. So seemingly you would have Evan Hall out, Zach Moss in on the hypothetical. So then your running backs for Sunday would be Zach Moss, Deon Jackson, and I guess you'd call Jake Funk up from the practice squad.
I guess, KB. Yes, you called Jack Funk up. I mean, yeah,
Jake,
sure. Jake. Sorry, Jack Funk.
Well, I'm
Jake
glad
Funk.
you screwed up the first name, not the last name. I screwed up the last name on the.
Oh, did you do that one time
on my podcast a couple weeks ago?
Well, that's fine. You just had Eddie G bleep it out. That's easy. It's not live, is it?
We decided to let it go.
You decided to let it go?
Throw the explicit.
I was about to say, look at you. You're a hot take guy now.
By the way, a little bit more in the Deon Jackson context. I was looking up Jonathan Taylor's stat line. Jonathan Taylor in his career, 35 games where he's had at least 12 carries. So that was the threshold that I went with for Deon Jackson. One time in his 35-game career has he been under 3 yards per carry.
It was last year, right?
Last year against Tennessee, like Tennessee, 2 points something or other.
Yeah.
So he's been at least 3 yards every single game. Again, Deon Jackson yesterday, 1.1.
Given the Colts did what they did, and given that the Giants did what they did, they had to be the GOATs. But just Congratulations to Jordan Love on his first game there. Just a
Mark,
right,
any,
Mark?
any congrats?
Just a congratulations going on the road.
More on Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy. You acquired DJ Moore and you threw the ball to him twice, and then the offensive line. I mean, Justin Fields snaps the ball and is under pressure within like half a second. Come on now.
He did.
Horrible.
DJ Moore did have 2 catches.
Horrible.
25
All that
yards.
hype, and it's the same old, and I'm sick to my stomach. I hate the Packers with a passion. I am sick of their fans.
Yes.
I know. That was.
We feel the same today.
That was in Chicago, right, Mark?
Yep.
Yeah. You guys both.
Week 18.
Home game against the Packers, home game against the Cowboys. Like the 2 games you guys probably circle more on the calendar than any other.
100%.
And that's the effort. I'm sorry to say this to you guys, but that's the effort. Oh, man.
Yeah. At least he scored 20 points.
I genuinely mean it. I apologize.
I don't know if you do apologize.
I've seen Notre Dame
apologize?
have that effort before, so I can be with you a little bit in that empathy. All right, we'll do it one final time here. Wake up call, KB and Andy on a Monday.
Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, good reaction Monday. Appreciate you waking up with us here on The Fan. Jake coming up at noon. JMV at 3 o'clock. Eddie Garrison was in here lamenting fantasy football. Everyone in here, fantasy football. How about that? Everyone talking about what they need and don't need tonight. Today, also, I wanted to throw this Mark's way here in the final couple minutes. 28 years ago today, because I know Mark likes this, in wrestling, began the Monday Night Raw versus the WCW. 28.
Monday Nitro?
Yeah, Nitro. 28 years today. How old were you then? I was trying to think. I was 11 years old.
9.
There you go. There you go. It's a historic day, KB. I know you don't care.
Back when wrestling was popping like 12 million an episode.
I still walking out of Lucas Oil yesterday, I had to do a little where even was I in 2013 when the Colts last won their season opener? I mean,
where were you?
I lived on Browse Avenue with 3 dudes that we just looked forward to Friday at 5 o'clock more than anything you can imagine, and we'd stay in Broad Ripple till 2 a.m. We'd have 40 people over to our house. We all were probably paying like $250 in rent. They should have paid us, honestly.
Little house party
to live in that house. Yeah, I mean, think about that. Like your first house post college. I mean, we thought we were on top of the world.
You were on top of the world.
And the Colts haven't won a season opener since then.
You were on top of the world.
Since then, I've been married now for approaching 5 years. I've got a couple kids. It's just like
you're washed now.
Yeah,
you're a different man. You're all washed up.
Need hair implants.
Are you getting that, by the way?
That's where I'm at.
Are you going with that?
Yeah.
Well, you might as well. It's why you're in Sports Talk Radio.
So where was Anthony Richardson 10 years ago? Was he even in?
No, he was 11 years old.
Was he in junior high?
11 years old. You are 5th grade, 6th grade. Yeah, something like that. That's where he was.
It's like now
for the deep voice still.
Now the storyline continues.
I was also, you guys will like this, Jimmy Trana. I don't know if you know who that is. He follows the media and stuff, especially in New York. New York Sports Radio got a caller today that says the Giants need to cut Daniel Jones and trade for Sam Ehlinger. I figured you guys would like that.
Gosh, is that like a diehard Texas fan? Who just pulls Sam Ehlinger out of thin air?
Dude, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea.
He was dressing yesterday.
I know, or to know where he's even at. Like, you got to love the NFL to know that. Or you're watching the game. By the way, did you guys think the witching hour, now, KB, I know you were at the game. Did you think, Mark, I don't know how you consume NFL, that the witching hour was kind of weak yesterday? It wasn't the great witching hour at 3:10 that we usually get. It was just, it was like a C+, C-.
That's
type
okay.
of witching hour.
I felt like the end of the 4 o'clock games were better. You had the Chargers, Dolphins, and then Patriots, Eagles had some moments there.
Yeah, they got close for a little bit,
late as well. Obviously, the podcast will be filled with plenty of Colts recap chatter. Again, Shane Steichen going to meet the media here in a little bit, so we will recap that and continue to preview not only this week, obviously Colts traveling to Houston for the first road game, but I do think the Indiana-Louisville game is it's kind of a fun thing for downtown. Curious what the crowd will look like coming up on Saturday afternoon, and I am a little surprised to see Louisville favored by 10.
Yeah, well, I might Uber down there. Why not go down there if you're an Indiana fan? I'm sure tickets aren't expensive. We can look that up, right? Go down there. Drink some brews. It's a noon game. You're out by 3 o'clock. You got your entire day in front of you. Come on.
Look at that. And you don't have a kid coming for another month or two. So
I say I'm going to go down there and Uber and have a big day like I'm actually going to. I'll be unpacking
freshly
boxes.
Moved.
Yeah, I'll be unpacking boxes for 13 straight hours.
Yes, Andy just moved over the weekend.
My body's killing me right now.
Certainly some thoughts and prayers on that end of it. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. Obviously, on this September 11th, we certainly remember everybody that lost their lives back some 22 years ago and all the first responders on that just hellacious morning that our country went through. So certainly never forget anybody that was involved with that, lost their lives. And again, all of our first responders, New York City, D.C., Pennsylvania, all throughout the U.S. So everybody have a good Monday, and we'll talk to you tomorrow here on The Fan.